On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're celebrating the charm of cottage living, where comfort, character, and creativity come together in storybook settings. We start in North Carolina, where an antiques dealer transformed her mountain retreat into the little house in the big woods, filled with heirlooms and timeless pieces. Then we head to the Cotswolds, where a family's countryside home is layered with vintage finds, rich textiles, and whimsical English charm. Next, just outside Chicago, a 1929 carriage house has been reimagined into a fairytale home with turrets, fireplaces, and old-world beauty. And finally, in Chester, Nova Scotia, a designer brings Palm Beach flair to a historic waterfront cottage, creating a vibrant summer escape by the sea. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, Homeworthy. I'm Debbie, and I'm so excited to share with you my North Carolina mountain house. So come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I'm Debbie Matthews, and I am the owner of Debbie Matthews Antiques and Designs. It's a luxury interior design firm as well as antique showroom. I've been a collector of beautiful antiques for 35 years. And I can't tell you how excited I am to share my beautiful and charming cottage with you that's tucked away here in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So my husband and I toyed with the idea of purchasing a small little mountain cabin, but we were never really all that serious about it. My husband went to UNC and has a lot of college friends who live in North Carolina, and even a few who have mountain homes in the area. And I think the more we came up here and visited his friends, the more he was really longing to be a part of this community. And it was just kind of a funny story. In December one year, he was scrolling, looking at real estate online, and he saw this cute little house come up for sale. My husband took the bull by the horns. He called the owner as opposed to the agent. And she said, "Oh, I think it's already under, contract. I'm so sorry." But they struck up a friendship. And several months later, he received an email and saw the same house on the market. And this was at the beginning of COVID. So he immediately came in the next room and said, "You're not going to believe it. This house that I was interested in is back on the market." And so once again, he reached out to the owner of the home. So we toured this sweet little cottage. We both fell in love. It was love at first sight. It definitely needed a lot of love and some maybe refreshing, but given my profession, that didn't scare me at all. And so the entire 5-hour drive back to Nashville, we talked nonstop about this house. And sure enough, we purchased it and have just been in love with the house and the surroundings ever since. So the way I would describe the style of this home is it is truly just a mountain cottage vibe. Again, it's a smaller home, but it's got a lot of charm and character for a home that was built in the 1980s. I always refer to this as the little house in the big woods. I know I'm probably aging myself, but I read all of those Laura Ingalls Wilder books back in the day. And our house, even though it's technically on about 2.5 acres, is surrounded by hundreds of acres of woods that cannot be built on. And what I've tried to do is imbue the house with a little bit of elegance and sophistication. And I feel like I've done that by bringing in some significant antique pieces, which of course is something I would do as an antique dealer. My personal aesthetic is definitely more traditional. I do incorporate some transitional elements into my designs, but I like design that doesn't have a true expiration date. Pieces that will withstand the test of time. Welcome to the entry of our home. This is the space that definitely changed more than any other space in the house. I called it, before we started tearing things apart, the Hall of Louvered Doors. Literally, louvered doors line both sides of this entrance hall. This was a solid wall closing off the living room. And we decided, in order to make the space feel larger, we wanted to take out all of those closets and create a built-in desk, drop zone, which would be functional as well as more beautiful. And then we also raised the ceiling in here. So again, a huge change in the space to hang your hats, your coats, drop off your golf shoes. Again, multifunctional, a built-in desk area. I did a little wool skirt here with a little cross-stitch motif, which I thought was kind of fun. But again, you can hide trash cans, briefcases in the desk. But my favorite element in this area is this antique oval window. And this was truly the first piece I bought for the house, and felt like we needed a window here. We wanted more natural light in the space. And I found this window, which is fully functional and operational. And so on a beautiful day, you can get a cross breeze and a lot of light. So this is a fun space. It's changed so much, and I think really makes the living room make more sense. As we step down into the living room, there are so many elements in this space that were really thought about with intention. And, again, how can we make this room live large? How can we accommodate a number of people and entertain? And so those were all the things that were kind of going through my mind. We wanted to open it all up. So we took out the half wall and added in this really pretty bronze colored railing. Again, just to give the space more of an airy, open feel. We wanted to incorporate more wood paneling in the home. Again, it was mostly drywall, and a lot of the homes in this area have paneling absolutely everywhere. So we went ahead and added it to the ceiling, and I created sort of a whitewash effect on the ceiling. Again, wanting to keep the space light and open. We painted the walls in this whole open area Sherwin-Williams moderate white, which just feels light and fresh. The other element that we gave a lot of thought to was this stone fireplace surround and mantle. This is original to the house, but the stone was really dirty. The mantle was kind of wimpy, so we made a lot of changes here. I had the stone professionally cleaned with a wire brush, and it turns out it's grandfather mountain stone, which is actually very valuable. We were told we could sell this stone for a lot of money, but of course I didn't want to dismantle the fireplace surround, but it really just looks so much better now that it's cleaned. And then I overgrouted with a lighter color mortar, again giving the room new life. We added in a much larger, chunkier mantle, which I personally distressed with hammers and chains just to give it an aged look, but this is not really an old piece of wood. So that was kind of a fun project. I worked on that in the garage. But what I love about the stone and the mantle is it just adds a lot of richness and texture to the space. which was important to me, along with the wood. And then talking a little bit about the layout, we wanted a space, as I mentioned before, that was functional, that we could entertain in. And so one of the key elements is this trefoil shaped ottoman. It's on casters. You can move it around. You know, again, it could be additional seating when people come over. You can scoot it to prop your feet on from really any chair in the space. You can put a tray on it and serve appetizers. So again, just another multifunctional piece in the room, and something that you don't see that shape everywhere. So maybe something just a little unexpected. And I also love the bullion fringe on it. Again, just a little bit whimsical to try to balance with some of the heavier antiques in the room. One of my good friends in Nashville is an artist, and so I commissioned her to do this painting, and it's actually called an encaustic, and that is layers of wax. So when you look at the painting from the side, it's got a lot of waviness, depth and dimension, and it really glows at night. I also like to talk about the furniture and the lighting, of course, because those elements are really, really important to me. This little side table is the first thing you see when you walk in our front door. So I bought this column in an antique mall, never knowing what I was going to do with it. And I had one of the carpenters here in the mountains make a tabletop. And so I think it's kind of fun when you walk in the front door and the first thing you see is just this architectural column as a side table. Again, nobody else has that because it's just something I had created. The other thing you'll notice when you step into the room is this really interesting chandelier. Again, nobody else will have it because it's something that was created. The metal ring was from a wine barrel. These are vintage wooden beads. And then somebody created and added the arms for the lights. And again, another one-of-a-kind piece that I think just gives a lot of interest. It also draws the eye up. And so again, you're feeling that volume. This wingback chair is upholstered in a beautiful cotton and tout wool. Again, the plaid feels very much like a mountain house. This sofa is upholstered in kind of a nubby tweed fabric by Larson, and again, is just very handsome. The whole color palette was inspired by this fabric. This is a Lijofa hand-blocked fabric, which means this was made using blocks, and they blocked maybe the green first, and then they came back with the ochre or the brown. So a very time-consuming process, but I loved that fabric. Again, it feels very much nature-inspired. This pair of tub chairs here, they're also covered in a Lijofa fabric, and this is actually an indoor-outdoor fabric. And I knew these chairs were going to get a lot of wear and tear because they're so comfortable. Everybody wants to sit here. So again, finding a fabric that would be durable and stain resistant was really important to me. One of my favorite types of fabric is a mohair fabric, and I use that in this kind of rusty color as well as green for the pillows. It's extremely durable. It's got a great sheen to it, and again, feels very much elevated. One of the things I did with this pillow is I added this wool trim in the horizontal pattern, and I did it to mimic the horizontal stripes on the drapery. The drapery is also wool. It's a sheer wool fabric, and it's pretty much the same color as the walls. Again, I didn't want the room to feel enclosed. I wanted it to feel light, and that drapery, I think, just enhances the windows. The windows are so pretty. I didn't want to detract from them. Usually my husband sits at this desk. This is where he likes to sit with his laptop and work. I sit at the desk in the entrance hall, and we can still talk to each other. So it's just kind of nice to have a space for each one of us. This daybed is probably my favorite place in the entire house to lay down and relax. Again, it was important to have a multifunctional piece here. Literally, you can lay down, watch a movie. So I might be laying down here, my husband could lay on the sofa, we tilt the TV, we can both be laying down. But this daybed also serves as an extra bed for guests. And because this house only has 2 bedrooms, we often have overflow. And so this bed serves as another place to sleep. It's a twin size bed. We have all of the sheets, bedding here in this antique chest. So it really comes in handy, but on a rainy afternoon, to curl up with a book is just the best. So again, my favorite spot in the whole house. This chest is actually an 18th century English piece, probably the finest piece in the whole house. And I really wanted an anchor piece on this wall because you really see through from the front door all the way to this back corner. I love the original brass hardware on it, this lion's head with the ring, it serves as a pull, but just the chunkiness and the dimension, I think really anchor this room more than any other piece in here. My Nashville house, I have mostly French antiques, so it was kind of fun in this space to actually incorporate more English pieces, and that was intentional. And then I try not to get too cutesy because it's a mountain house and have too many antlers, but I did think this mirror was really fun. And so again, put this in a location where you'd see it right when you walked in the front door. As far as art, I like to mix art. I like to bring in some serious pieces as well as some fun pieces. And this is just an owl print. It's not super valuable, but again, I think it's just another nod to the mountains and takes the sophistication down a little bit. It's a little bit more whimsical, and it kind of balances out some of the heavier oil paintings that you'll see hanging in this room. All in all, this is the room where we live. We love this space. We love cozying up to the fire in the cooler months. We love entertaining and having people over, and it really is the heart of the home. It's been quite a renovation journey, and really our little 1,650 square foot home, you might think it wouldn't take very long to renovate. So our renovation took probably 9 or 10 months. The crazy part of the story is that just a couple months after it was finally complete and we'd come and visited a few weekends and stayed here, my husband came back and I got a phone call from him. He rarely calls me while I'm at work, and I thought, oh gosh, I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, I answered and he said, Debbie, you're just not gonna believe it, but our house has flooded. So we only got to stay here 2 times after the first renovation. And the room that I'm sitting in, because it's a sunken living room, acted as a swimming pool. So water flowed from the kitchen where the refrigerator hose had burst into this room. So fortunately, the water damage did not extend to the bedrooms. But our second renovation actually was more thorough than the first, just because we had to rip out drywall down to the studs because the water had been in the house probably for several weeks. People would just joke. They said, wow, you've been renovating for almost 2 years. And I'm sure they were thinking, okay, the smallest house, what are they doing to this house? And so we've had to explain so many times, it's actually been 2 complete renovations, not just 1. So we can laugh about that now, but at the time it was very, very sad. and just one of those things that we had to really get through. But we're very pleased with the renovations, and the house lives very, very well. I'd like to take you now into the kitchen. And the kitchen is small, but it's mighty. And this is where the flood started. So we did have to get all new cabinetry in the space. It also gave us the ability to slightly move the island, which gives us a little bit more space here in this walkway. Again, I went with another shade of green in the kitchen. This is also a Sherwin-Williams color, and it is called Herbal Wash. And I just love how it turned out, and I wanted to accent the green with some very vintage inspired brass cup pulls and knobs. And then this faucet has a living finish, and it will age over time. But I think that is just another element that feels very cottage-like and old as it ages. I used another quartzite Taj Mahal in the kitchen. This one is creamy with some gold and some light green veining. So again, ties in to the green palette here. One of the things that was a part of the house was this interesting horizontal narrow window in the kitchen. And we debated about getting rid of it. We went back and forth. Ultimately, we decided to keep it. And I'm so glad that we did. In the evening, these plants that are in the window box outside glow. It almost feels like you're looking at an aquarium. And so it's just a really interesting element and a conversation piece when people come over in the evening for the first time. We went back with some glass cabinets here to kind of tie into the window as opposed to painted cabinet doors. And this is where I store a lot of the vintage Fostoria that we use here when we entertain. Moving into the dining room, it was important to me that we be able to accommodate 8 people at this table. So right now there are 6 chairs surrounding the table, but I can bring 2 chairs from the living room in. And so we can have a dinner party for 8 people in here. One of the first pieces that I found was this beautiful dining table. And again, this is another one of those conversation starters because this style table is called a wake table. And wake tables were very prevalent in Ireland and England, and they truly were used to display the deceased on this center section. The sides fold down, so it's a drop leaf, and often they would display the body for several days, and people would pay their respects or pray over the body, and then they would take the body away and serve food on the table. I know that sounds very strange, but that is the history of this style table. And I just love it when a piece has a story. And so it's kind of fun at dinner parties to tell that story. This is another piece that I inherited from my father. And it is just a French cupboard and a great way to display china. It's got a lot of storage. And so it's very functional. We kind of have a bar set up inside here where we store bottles of wine and liquor. And then we have this little area where we may serve wine when we're entertaining. We can set this up as a little serving area. So this is also a functional part of the dining room. One of the things that I like to do is when I do have these darker wood pieces, I like to have something lighter, again, so the space doesn't feel too heavy. So I bought these chairs, which are English, and had somebody paint them or whitewash them. Again, I didn't want everything being dark stained wood, And I think they're just very attractive this way. And again, I used a dark green indoor-outdoor velvet, so I wouldn't have to worry about the seats of the chairs getting stained. I think I mentioned I've got 2 sweet little granddaughters, and I found this fun little high chair at an estate sale. And so we'll often pull it up for one of them when they're here, and it just feels very rustic and is kind of a fun little piece. Again, I mixed in some vintage lighting. This is from Barcelona, Spain. It's metal with a leafy design, and I found some matching candelabra that we also use when we entertain. I love flickering candlelight. I think it adds so much to the mood and to the ambiance, and so just kind of fun to have these candles when we entertain. One of the other things that I like so much about this dining room is there's a lot of natural light in the space, and it also opens up to this porch. And so we're constantly, keeping these doors open. We go in and out a lot to this porch area and probably eat the majority of our lunches out here, weather permitting. And so it's just easy to prepare food in the kitchen and then bring it out here. And you can see it's just all woods, lots of lush, 100-foot trees. So it feels very natural when you're out here and you can't really see any other homes. So we're out here on our own. But I found this great table and chairs at a consignment store here in the mountains. I thought this was just a really interesting centerpiece. It's very heavy, not easy to move, but again, a lot of candles, which I think is just fun. This little area here on the porch is just a space where you can come, relax with a book or a magazine, and rock. Again, just enjoying nature. We don't even really use this lower patio right now, but this is just, another way to make the house feel larger. We have so many porches, a lot of outdoor living, and just another space to sit and enjoy nature, listening to the birds. And this gives you really a bird's eye view of the poplar bark siding that covers the entire house. So all of the older homes in this area use chestnut bark, but I was told that there was a chestnut tree blight in the 1940s, and so now when homes are covered in this bark, they're now using poplar bark. But again, I think it gives a house instant age and charm. I love to talk about how I created this passion for antiques. It's just kind of a story that tells the history of who I am. So I grew up in Southern California, and my mother's mother, that grandmother, was a huge collector of antiques. Now, she liked antiques that were heavy and Victorian, and that's not really my style, but I would accompany her to garage sales, estate sales, antique shows, flea markets, auctions, and I learned a lot just by watching her, really how to examine a piece, to pull out all the drawers, to actually sit in a chair. My best friend who lived across the street, her mother was also a huge fan of antiques. And they had moved from the East Coast where primitive antiques were very much the style. And so again, I had another influential woman in my life who was teaching me about antiques and also dragging me to antique malls and estate sales and garage sales. And so I had 2 women who were coming at it differently because they collected different styles, and I just absorbed it. and they would make it fun. So my best friend and I would go with her mom to, an antique mall. And, we might have only been 5 years old. And the way that she would engage us is she would make it a contest. She would say things like, okay, let's see how many Little Red Riding cookie jars you can find. And it became a game. And I thought that was, now that I look back, I think it was absolutely brilliant because she engaged us, she made antique shopping fun. And now I actually do this for a living. And never in a million years did I think this would become my career. When I went to college at UCLA, I was actually pre-med. Couldn't be further from design and hunting for beautiful antiques. But I think I chose medicine at that time because my mother, who I've not mentioned, was sick pretty much my whole childhood. She had Lou Gehrig's disease and couldn't really talk or walk. So I think that's why these other women became so influential. So I think maybe I went off the rails a little bit thinking, okay, I'm going to cure the world, so I'm going to become a doctor. But I think my true calling is design, is antiques, and I found my way back to that. In my 20s, I did open my first antique booth, and just to get my feet wet, and I started attending auctions and just collecting on my own. I had moved to Nashville, so I wasn't near these influential women, and it just was something that I really wanted to try out, and I loved it. And so that's kind of how this all came about. One of the things I love about antiques, and most of the antiques that I carry in my shop, are 200 years old. And so they, for the most part, are not perfect. Many of these pieces were, handmade. So again, some imperfection there. They lived in a time or in spaces where there was no central heat and air. Many of the pieces that I purchase come over on a boat. So, these pieces have lived a full life, but I kind of like the imperfection because I think it allows people to relax in a space. It gives everybody permission just to be a little bit more forgiving. And I love the charm and character that comes with some of these older pieces. Sometimes you'll look, I buy a lot of antique writing desks, and you can see where people penned letters in the past. There might be ink stains on the top of a desk, or you can see, maybe where their quill or pen left marks on the desk. I've even seen where hearts have been carved in the top of pieces. So again, I feel like they're conversation starters. I feel like antiques give a room authenticity, history, depth. And so even if you can only afford one fine piece, I think it can make a huge impact and instantly elevate everything else in the room. Hello friends, welcome to the primary bedroom suite. It's really one of my favorite spaces in the home. For those of you who don't know me, yellow is my favorite color, and it's such a happy color that I really wanted to wrap the room in this beautiful yellow as well as soft sage green. And the inspiration for this room was just this sweet little embroidered pillow. It's a Chelsea Textiles pillow, and I felt like it really embraced nature. And so I just teed off of the colors in this pillow to design the room. One of the things about this space that changed dramatically during the renovation is the ceiling. The ceiling was not vaulted like this before. It was just an 8-foot ceiling, and so the room felt so much smaller. The other thing about this bedroom is that it didn't encompass this whole space. The bedroom really stopped just right here. There wasn't this little seating group. This was enclosed and was actually part of the guest bedroom. And we just thought it made more sense to open this bedroom up. This bedroom is attached to our screen porch, and we didn't like the idea of having to go through the guest bedroom to get to the screen porch. So this room did undergo a lot of change. Again, we vaulted the ceiling, we added a beam, we closed off, there was another door over here. Again, my favorite colors are yellow and green, and I found this beautiful fabric. It's made in Italy by a company named Bussati. And Bussati has been weaving just beautiful textiles since 1842. They even furnish a lot of linens for the White House. But they've got a weaving technique where the fabric isn't printed. They actually use different colors of thread. So the fabric has a lot of texture to it. But this fabric has beautiful acorns and a leafy design that just really gives a nod to this area. I used the same fabric on the Euro pillows, and one of the details that I just think turned out so beautifully, it almost looks like hand embroidery around the perimeter of the pillows, and this is something that Bussati can do. And so I love ordering their textiles, not only for myself, but for client projects. I also use this bamboo inspired headboard, and you will see a lot of bamboo and rattan used throughout the house. I feel like it's very much in tune with the mountains, kind of that rustic charm. And one of the things I like to do in my design projects is repeat elements. So like I said, you will see bamboo again as we walk through the house. I love how the window over here looks out over the garden, and there's some beautiful terraced gardens outside. And I love opening up the drapery in the morning and seeing what's in bloom. And as a way to embrace the outdoors, I also found these pressed botanicals. So it kind of feels like the garden extends this way. You're seeing the flowers outside, and then I hung this set of 4 pressed botanicals on the wall. I feel like they're kind of vintage looking, and again, kind of continue the garden. As you know, I love to incorporate antiques into every room. And I found this great pair of crusty old Bombay chests, and they had the green painted top. So I thought, well, that's perfect here in the bedroom. One of the other things I like to do when I have a lot of brown furniture in a room, I also like to bring in some painted pieces so the room doesn't start to feel heavy. And I feel like these light, crusty pieces were just the perfect solution in this space, because as you can see, the headboard is a dark stained wood, as are these other case pieces in the space. And we'll wander over here and take a look. So this is a bookcase that I found. It's got these ionic columns and this fluting on the sides. You can actually pull this out for additional surface space. And it's just a great place to display our children's photos, just lots of family photos. I think it's just nice to have those in the bedroom where my husband and I can look, see the beautiful faces of all of our children and grandchildren. This piece is actually Italian. It's walnut, and I loved the design of it. It's got these great diamond-shaped embellishments on the cabinet doors, and is very functional, but this kind of grounds the space. I don't ever like a TV that just floats and doesn't have a piece of furniture below it. And then because of the vaulted ceiling, I thought it would be kind of fun to hang the basket above the TV just to draw the eye up so you would feel the volume in the room. This little sitting area is just a wonderful space. These chairs are Baker chairs. They're covered in Cowton and Tout fabric, and they swivel. And so it's kind of nice in the afternoon, especially if we have guests, to have a place where we can escape with a good book, take a rest. My husband, you'll often see him in one of these chairs. He can sit there, he can angle the TV and watch golf in the afternoon. So this is just a really cozy little space that usually just the two of us use. Again, I'll point out, I found this antique little ottoman or stool, and I painted the stained wood the wall color. Again, I didn't want the room to be too heavy with all dark stained furniture, so I painted the legs, and then I found this great fabric. It looks like wood grain, and that's called faux bois. Faux bois in French just means false wood, and you'll see that element repeating itself throughout the home. But found this green faux bois fabric, and I feel it just really ties the space together. One of my favorite design elements in any space is drapery. I feel like nothing transforms a space more than drapery. And here in the mountains, drapery is not only beautiful, but it's highly functional, because when we leave, especially in the winter, it's just another layer of insulation. I have all the drapery here in the mountains lined with something called bump, and it's like a heavy blanket. So it really adds insulation and keeps the cold out in the winter. This is a beautiful wool fabric with just a very charming little trim on the leading edge. They're all fully functional drapery, and again, keep this room nice and cozy in the winter. One of the things you'll see throughout the house is one-of-a-kind lighting. I always joke I'm a bit of a lighting snob. I don't want the lighting in my design projects to look like everybody else's house. So I found this pair of chandeliers. They're from Europe, and you can see they've got flowers and leaves. Again, just another nod to the outdoors. Gardening is huge in this mountain community, and so I love the fact that these gilt metal chandeliers had flowers. I think they're just really unique and different and make the space. The pair of lamps are more transitional. They're not antique, obviously, on an acrylic base, but I like, as you know, I talked about earlier, keeping a home current and bringing in maybe more transitional elements in the last layer. And so that's what I did with these beautiful gold lamps. So I like to mix it up with vintage and newer pieces. I also just love art. I love vintage art. I love thick oil paintings. I love watercolors. This is a mountain landscape. It was done by a Russian artist, and I just thought the colors were perfect for the space. The piece that hangs over the bed is an older piece, and again, it just shows a mountain lakeside scene. I thought the frame was beautiful, so I really wanted that to be the focal point. So as you walk down the hallway into the bedroom, you would see this beautiful oil painting, and that might take center stage. Now, the biggest piece of art in the room is something that I found at a flea market, believe it or not. I thought the lush trees, the countryside spoke to the serene sort of vibe in this space, and I loved the size, and I actually got it for a great deal. And the frame I thought suited the room as well. It's similar wood tones to some of the furniture in the space. So I feel like with the different art pieces, the antiques, but then the light colors, this room is very soothing, it's serene, and it feels current even though it is anchored by antiques. Now I'd like to show you the primary bathroom. This is another space that changed dramatically. Again, the previous owner was just a single person, and the bathroom just had a single sink. And so what we did was we stole some space from the entrance hall to create double vanities in this little bathroom. We designed all new cabinetry, which I think turned out really well. We added little bracket feet, that detail. We also added a window. There was no window in this bathroom. There was just a solar tube light that came down through the ceiling. And it was really, really important to me that there be a bathroom window. And so we added that. It's not large, but it definitely makes the space just feel better and more open. I incorporated a pair of these Carver's Guild very sculptural mirrors, which I think are kind of fun. And then these are actually exterior lanterns that I hung on the walls in here. And I love how the bronze and the brass finish tie together all the other finishes in the bathroom. As I mentioned, we enlarged the bathroom almost 2 feet so that we could accommodate a larger shower. And, so we basically gutted the previous bathroom, moved it out, and I decided just to go with simple white subway tile because, again, trying to make these smaller, rooms feel larger. So everything in the bathroom is fairly neutral with the exception of the cabinetry. I painted the cabinets. It's a Sherwin-Williams color called Felt Sage, and I think it works perfectly in here. And then I chose a quartzite. It's a Taj Mahal, but this particular slab has a lot of green in it, and I think just ties together beautifully with the cabinetry. And then I had a little skirted vanity stool made, and again, that same sort of yellow and green color, and it just ties the whole space together. Right off the primary suite is this just amazing screen porch. I love it out here. I feel like I'm truly outside with nature. One of the first pieces of furniture or dining set that I purchased is this Brighton pavilion. It's bamboo and rattan, and I felt like it just looked like a mountain house. Again, one of my very first purchases, and I found this great jasper fabric that I upholstered the seat cushions in. And we'll often have lunch out here. Sometimes I'll put hors d'oeuvres or appetizers on the table in the evening. It's just a great spot to unwind at the end of the day and listen to the little waterfall that's in the backyard. So anyway, this is just like another room in the house, and again, helps this house to feel larger than it actually is. We love sitting out here. I found these great little placemats that just look like twigs. It's kind of funny. I found this silverware at a flea market, and it's vintage Washington forge, but I love the wood handles, the little brass rivets, and so had to have that. I also found at a flea market these dishes. They're Royal Worcester from England, and again with the ferns and the leaves, I thought they would be perfect for the mountain house, and they're called Wild Harvest. So again, trying to keep everything connected, everything feeling very mountain-like. As we go through the house, you'll see a lot of stripes and plaids used throughout. So all of those things together helped us to create a unified tablescape. I also have a set of vintage Fostoria. And the thing I love about Fostoria, it was made I think in the early 1900s up through the 1980s, but it's really heavy glassware. It's sturdy and it's easy to grip because of this kind of diamond block pattern. So I have lots of pieces of that. You'll see those throughout the home as well. This candelabra over here, I think, was the second item I purchased for this house. And I just thought it's almost like a piece of sculpture. And in the evening, when you light the candles, it really is just a special moment over here in the corner. As you wander toward the backyard, there's a cozy little gathering spot that we like to hang out in the evening, have a glass of wine. Again, I carried the bamboo furniture theme. A lot of this is vintage Brighton Pavilion. And, you know, as I mentioned before, we bought this home during the pandemic. And it was very difficult to get furniture quickly. And so I found it was easier to find vintage pieces and have them recovered rather than wait a year or a year and a half to order new furniture. I really like how all these pieces came together because the little set with the 4 chairs I bought from one vendor. I bought these 2 pieces, this console and coffee table from another vendor, the sofa and 2 chairs from yet another vendor. So I kind of put all of these pieces together like a puzzle, but think it actually turned out well. And then the last piece was this bamboo wingback chair. I just think it's great. I love the height of it out here. And then I use this indoor-outdoor nubby, almost like a tweed fabric, to upholster all the cushions just to give me a basic neutral ground. And then I used an indoor-outdoor velvet to welt all the cushions just to give them a little bit of something extra. And I love the green and how it really pops. And then use some of that same green velvet for some pillows out here. And then had some lumbar pillows and square pillows for the sofa made out of this really woodsy Colfax and Fowler fabric. So I feel like everything ties together really well. It feels very intentional. Again, we do have a TV out here. We rarely turn it on. It was so funny because my kids kept saying, you've got to have a TV out on that porch because once you're finished playing golf, you can then come sit on the porch and watch more golf. So they gave it to us one year for Christmas. But again, this place is just the best to observe nature and then look out on these enormous native rhododendrons that are in the backyard. And I feel like it's just so private and so wonderful to be out here. You don't feel like you've got anybody else around. You might hear the occasional car, but you really are just focused on the sounds of nature, which for me, that's what nourishes my soul and gives me energy, is listening to the birds, watching the butterflies. You can see a hummingbird. That's what this area is known for. Beautiful gardens, lush, thick rhododendrons. And this is just a wonderful spot to view all of it. You can walk out here and see this vintage faux bois table and chairs. And I mentioned there are a number of faux bois elements, whether it's fabric or this French concrete furniture. Again, it just means false wood and is a nod to nature. And this is really one of my favorite things in the house. I found this at an antique market and just fell in love with it. And I think when I sell the house, it will have to stay because it took 6 men to move this table in. And it's just perfect for this spot. So again, we can open up the door to the screen porch, sit out here, have a glass of wine, and enjoy nature, as well as this little water feature, this waterfall, which just adds so much to the joy of sitting on the screen porch or being outside. I'm excited to show you the terrace gardens as we walk up. Again, that's something else that people really embrace here in this mountain community is gardening, and things grow beautifully here. I mean, this is really a rainforest, and so everything is so lush because we get so much rain. This, again, is a fairly small bathroom, but it needed to serve two different purposes. It's not only the powder room, but it's the ensuite bathroom for our guest bedroom. So come on in and I'll show you the renovations and changes that we made to this small space. The first thing we did was we took out the vanity that was here, and I found this beautiful antique bamboo cabinet, and it came with this white marble top, so it was just perfect. And I had the carpenters up here, you know, cut into it to accommodate a sink. These were actually just candle sconces that I had electrified. They belonged to my best friend's mother, and she gifted them to me many, many years ago. And so again, just a sentimental piece here in the bathroom, and it always reminds me of her when I'm in here. And then I always love a Louis Philippe mirror. We sell a lot of these in our showroom, but I love the simplicity, and I think it adds a touch of elegance to this powder room slash ensuite bathroom. And then I found this great little hat or coat rack. It's Victorian bamboo. It ties in really well with the Victorian bamboo cabinet, and I think makes the space feel very cohesive. And then also incorporated an antique toll tray above that's hand painted with birds and flowers. So again, a very simple bathroom, but a lot of thought went into the space. The color that I used in here is Benjamin Moore Van Cortlandt Blue. I absolutely love this color. I've used it on a number of client projects, but it was really important to me to incorporate some blue in the house because blue is my husband's favorite color. He went to UNC Chapel Hill. He's all about UNC blue. And so I decided that our powder room and guest suite should incorporate a lot of blue to make him happy. I did a custom shower curtain out of this blue leafy fabric. I love a custom shower curtain, and I think it just adds some softness into the bathroom. A lot of times bathrooms just have a lot of hard surfaces, and so it's just something soft and pretty. And then a Turkish prayer rug is just when you get out of the bathtub, you know, a mat to dry your feet on. So again, a very small bathroom, but very well thought out. We're now going to walk into the guest bedroom, and I am so pleased with how this room turned out. Again, it's a very small room, but it's got all of what I consider to be the most important design elements for a guest bedroom. So I always tell my clients a guest bedroom should have at least one chair where your guests can sit down to put their shoes on. And this particular wicker chair belonged to my great-grandmother. And I've had it since I was about 22 years old. I've painted it a number of different colors, but I really like this kind of glossy, tortoisey brown that I painted it on when I brought it into this house. So again, I think a guest bedroom should always have a chair. The other thing I think a guest bedroom should have is maybe a little writing desk. And so we incorporated that next to the bed. The reason why I think a guest bedroom should have a writing desk is because so many guests will bring a laptop, and it gives them a place to maybe sit, look at their computer, or because the guest bathroom is so small, it could also be a place for the woman to sit and do her makeup. So again, another multifunctional piece can really make the space more, just functional for your guests. This room was based around this fabric, which I have always loved. It's a Lee Joffa floral. But one of the things that I really loved about this fabric is that it has this wonderful border. And I love finding fabrics that have a border because there are so many ways that you can embellish drapery, bedding, pillows with a border. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that we did. So as we walk over here to the drapery, I had my drapery workroom cut the border off and then reapply it to the leading edge of these drapes. So it's almost functioning like a trim on the leading edge. The other drapery detail that you'll see is I had these custom-made ties, and they're attached where the drapery is pleated, just to give a little bit more of a cottage vibe that I think really makes the space. You'll see those same ties here on the custom duvet cover, and again used another striped fabric cut on the bias to create those ties, and I think they just turned out really, really well. You'll see that same detail here on the pillow shams. So came up with the idea of doing ties here on the side of these pillows as well, so that everything again ties together. And then I found this great striped fabric. It's by York, and had this bolster made, and then this sweet little pillow, again, out of this floral fabric that I love so much. The desk chair, I incorporated both the York striped fabric on the seat and then the Lee Joffa fabric on the chair back. And so tried to just make it very whimsical and fun and bright and cheerful for a guest bedroom. There are a couple of other pieces in here that have sentimental value. This iron bed was a piece from my dad's house, and so it's been kind of fun to repurpose it, use it here in our mountain house, but I thought it was absolutely perfect for this room. It's got the little birds perched on the top of the iron posts. So again, a nod to nature. This Turkish rug that's floating on top of the wool rug was also my dad's. So I feel like this room tells a story about pieces that have been in my family and mean a lot. They're just very special. And it reminds me of my dad when I walk in here. The writing desk is French, and it's got these great little hoof feet on it. And the other bedside table is Italian and just has a really rich walnut patina. So we've got, again, some dark brown wood furniture, but in order to keep the space from feeling, like a museum, I added in these more kind of fun transitional lamps, again, that have that leaf motif, these patterned moist shades. So again, elements that keep the space fresh and light so as not to feel old and dated. One of the things I like to do on design projects is continue a color, maybe in a different way. So while the bathroom is painted all Van Cortlandt blue. In this room, just the trim, the baseboards, and the louvered closet doors. So bringing that blue in here, but making the room feel a little bit lighter and painting the walls more of a cream color. Lastly, I'll just point out this little chandelier. My husband doesn't love this chandelier, but I think it kind of makes the space. It's got the same sort of ochre color that's in this fabric. It's just a teeny little fixture. And I think, again, is one of those that's just one of a kind. Nobody else will have that. But I think it just adds a lot to the space. Our guests enjoy staying here. They feel like it's very cozy and homey. And so I hope you've enjoyed seeing it as well. Home means so many different things to me. And sometimes it's hard to separate what home means to me personally versus professionally. So I'll start with professionally. Sometimes I look at my house as a laboratory where I can experiment with things that I can't really experiment with in a client's home. So whether that's a new vendor, a new fabric, a new design, a new drapery design. So I think it's kind of fun when I'm working on my own house to have that flexibility that I might be a little too nervous to tackle with a client. But personally, I think a home really tells the story of the people who live there. And so when I'm designing a home for somebody else, I really try to get at the root of who they are. And so I think that story really encompasses people's past. I try to always incorporate sentimental pieces of my clients, maybe family heirlooms, which I think make the home story even more interesting. So again, bringing pieces from the past, sharing heritage. I also think our home reflects how we live on a daily basis. And, what is comfortable? What brings us joy? Do books bring us joy? Do we want to surround ourselves with books? Do we work from home? Do we need to have a special place where we feel content to work and comfortable? And then I also think home is about the future. How can we accommodate our home for a growing family? Or in my case, I have 2 sweet little granddaughters who come and visit us up here or visit us in our Nashville home. And so how can we prepare our homes to encompass, what life might look like even 5 years from now? So I think our home is kind of the crossroads of the past, the present, and the future.
Hi, Homeworthy. Thank you so much for coming all this way to visit me here at my home in the Cotswolds. I'm Sarah Kirk, and this is our cottage. Come on in and I'll show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Sarah Kirk. I am a mother and a homemaker, and welcome to my home in the Cotswolds. My husband and I met in London, got married in the US, and had a decision to make: either move to the countryside to start our family or move to America for a few years. And we always agreed that when our children started school, primary school, reception, that we would relocate back to England. And we did. We followed through. When our oldest was ready to start school, we returned back and settled here in the Cotswolds. The original house is a period Cotswold stone cottage, but it's been built on twice, so it has 2 later additions in its history, and we're not really sure when those were. It has a very interesting, kind of bizarre floor plan because of the way it was designed over time. So there's lots of little dips where you have to duck your head and lots of little corners to go around, and some of the rooms are all joined up. So it's a very untraditional floor plan. Right, so this is the sitting room. This is the main living space in our home. This is where we mostly are. And yeah, it's a lovely room. This is from part of the old part of the home. It's got the fireplace with a wood burning stove, which is always on in the warmer winter months. And yeah, there's just lots of little places to sit down, read a book, play Lego, drag your toys out, and play. This fireplace fender seat we got from Eddie's parents, and I had it upholstered, and this is a lovely place to just sit by the fire and perch in the winter time. The curtains I had made in this little ditzy floral print, which is really cottagey. The sofa I found for free on Facebook Marketplace, and it was old beat up Chesterfield, and I hauled it back home and had it reupholstered in this beautiful Warner House paisley, which is just so comfortable now to sit. The painting we bought in Savannah, Georgia at an antique shop there. It was just kind of in a corner up against a wall, and I just love the pinks and kind of greens in it, blues. A very sentimental piece that we've had for a long time. This table is a recent auction find that I just brought in really a couple months ago, and it's got this beautiful scallop design, but it's a great place. I like having lots of little tables. Just you can move them about, you can put things, set your drinks down on them. There's a lot in this room I'll show you. This table is actually just an old garden table. It's really rusty. It has a hole in the middle where you could put an umbrella, but I just usually cover it up with something. But I love it. I have this in here. The shelves were here. I painted a contrasting trim, but this was here just like it is, and I styled it with some old dried hydrangeas and an old, I believe it's a tobacco jar from, I think I got it in Williamsburg, Virginia. We lived in Virginia for a while, so I love having that out. And then the bust, I can't remember who it is. I think it's Diana. And yeah, just some little bits and pieces, candles, things. The chair is another auction find. It was actually just upholstered like this, and I just love the check so much. I'm just going to leave it as it is, even though it's a little frayed. I love that. The rug is this beautiful jute rug by Bertie Fortescue, and it's just a lovely design, really light, but hard wearing, nice to have in a family home, great for a cottage. I put lots of plates on the wall. There's quite a few in here. These are just some old blue and whites. They're a little bit stained. They have that beautiful patina, which I love. I also have some plates over on this wall. These are like a more brown pattern, and I just love how they go together. This is a beautiful silk lampshade by Chloe Johansson, and it's made from, I believe, like sari silk, and it's put in that gathered shade. Really beautiful. This is an old chest of drawers that I bought at auction, and I love the old brass hardware on it and the beautiful inlay. I mean, it's definitely seen better days, but I like things that are a bit worn. So the sofa is another thrifted piece that I got from an estate sale, and I just love the pink and white stripes. And I've just thrown on some cushions, an old American quilt. The cushions are made with an old Swiss Kelch fabric in this beautiful check and this beautiful stripe. And yeah, it's just, I'm changing cushions all the time, but I love these. This is an old kind of oval shaped coffee table. I have it styled with this rattan tray with a beautiful scalloped edge from a shop. She does these beautiful trays called Petite Pannier. And yeah, it just has some books, candles, knickknacks, things like that. Yeah. The light fixtures are like an old schoolhouse style. I got these from Spark and Bell, and they just have that lovely milky glass and that schoolhouse shape, which is so distinctive. So this is beautiful old weathered corner cupboard, which I bought at auction without having measured it. And it is basically a perfect fit, which makes me think it was really meant to be. And I hope, you know, if we ever leave here, it will fit in the next house because it is perfect for this spot. This is a pair of chairs that I reupholstered in this beautiful Waterhouse fabric and put these are some French plates from a local lady who has a shop called Say Two, and she imports all these old French antiquities. So she's got a barn full of French finds. I tend to try and do more British, but my husband is half French, so we do have little French bits around. The table, which I'm using as a table, is actually an old baker's tray, and it would have been mahogany, I believe, but it's just been left outside for probably years. And I'm just using that as a little side table. And then the brass horse, it could have been a trophy, but I got this in Virginia. Very horsey there, and also fits in quite well here. This is a beautiful riverside landscape with the beautiful towpath alongside it, which reminds me of scenes close to where I grew up. This old pine cupboard, I think it was a baker's cupboard, where, but it could have been a larder or a kitchen cupboard. I love this beautiful old weathered pine, and I just fill it up with quilts and photo albums and games and puzzles and things you'd have here in the sitting room. Okay, so right next door is the dining room if you'd like to come have a look. Okay, so this is the dining room. And I guess the first thing to say is that it's papered in this beautiful trellis pattern, which is blue and green combination, which I really love. And this is an old painting of one of my husband's French ancestors, and she looks very pious and reflective there, and I kind of think of her saying her prayers, and I just think this is a lovely piece for a dining room where you give thanks and say grace before a meal. And this is where, you know, we have our dining table, which is basically just an old trestle table, which is on old cast iron trestles. And it's got these really neat bentwood bistro chairs, which we got from my husband's parents, which was really nice. And this beautiful tablecloth is by Sarah Kay Designs, not me, Sarah Kay, but another very talented lady who does all kinds of nice homewares. I've done the curtains in a beautiful block print design by a British lady called Julia Brendel, and just love that pattern. This painting is another find that we picked up in Savannah, and I actually just bought it off a guy who was selling it. It's one of his grandmother's paintings. So I just thought it was such a beautiful still life. I just love it. This is just a low boy table that we've had over the years. That just seemed like a nice spot for it. and it's very battered and old, but very much beloved. No, I don't think I even knew that I was buying these. I think I was buying something at auction and it came in a lot of other things. And I think it was like a platter or something I was getting. And these happened to, I had bought these without knowing. And I felt like they needed a home somewhere. So I just put them here in the dining room, and they oversee all the festivities. The build-ins were here, and it was naturally just a lovely home for all of our crystal and for all the mismatched plates. I love using old blue and white or old green and white transferware or lusterware plates, and just have a mismatch. So it's just all stacked up there, leaning over to the side. So yeah, and then I love taxidermy, but my husband hates it, so it has to be really hidden away in here because we don't want to frighten anyone with it. This old oak painting is actually painted by a relative of my husband's, and it's just such a beautiful natural forest scene, which is really lovely. And this is like an old plan chest, or, you know, where an architect, you know, would have their plans, or a sort of surveyor. And it's basically where I keep all of my children's artwork because I just can't throw it away. So a lot of it gets hung up, but a lot of it just goes in these old drawers. And I literally have drawers and drawers of my kids' artwork in here, which is cute. This is just an old chair. We've had this as long as we've been together, and I just can't get rid of it. So I just keep moving it around, and it just goes from room to room, and there's always a spot for it. We always find a spot for it. Yeah, this is a little pair of lamps, very old, but yeah, they've got the pretty little gingham shade. So this pendant made with this beautiful linen striped shade was the first thing that I bought for the whole dining room. I just knew I wanted a dining table with this over it. And then everything else just came later, and there wasn't really any plan. But this was the one piece that I just love so much in this room. The rug was a gift from my in-laws, from my husband's family, and it just suits this room perfectly. This cupboard is an old schoolhouse cupboard, and it weighs about 1,000,000 pounds, and it's impossible to move, and it's all one piece. And it's where I have all the tablecloths and linens and little bits hidden away. But I just love this old schoolhouse cupboard. These are really funny pair of lamps with these adorable little cherub figures here, climbing up what looks like a fruit tree with a ladder, and then these beautiful scalloped linen shades I put on them. And yeah, they're quite fun in here. So these are just, you know, I can't go into a charity shop and not buy, you know, an old platter if I see one, and I've just got them lying around in stacks. I mean, some of them could go on the walls somewhere maybe, or, you know, if we're having a dinner party or we're serving, well, I can just take my pick. I have so many. But yeah, they're just stacked up here for the moment. So this is the little sunroom. It's a tiny little room, but has great big personality. This is an old dresser, pine dresser, again with the old brass, which I just love, and, you know, more of the ironstone collection up there. The rug is a beautiful rug, beautiful scalloped jute rug from Tate and Darby. Beautiful, she sources lots of beautiful natural rugs, natural fiber rugs. Here on the wall is some of my ironstone again. This old butcher's block is, it's an old French butcher's block, which my in-laws used to use when they were first married as their little kitchen table. Believe it or not, they sat at this. So it's got a very sweet history, and it's just a beautiful rustic old piece. The curtains in here are this beautiful kind of Indian-inspired block print, which was designed by Sophia Francis Studio. These iron curtain rods with a little iron finial, curved finial, are from Nigel Tyas. They're all handmade. They're so beautiful and so perfect for this cottage. One of my very favorite things about this house is the beautiful views. And if you look across the garden, out over the hedge, is the most wonderful view of the Cotswold countryside. And it is just a constant inspiration to all of us here at our home. If you'd like to follow me, I'd like to show you in my kitchen. Here we are in our cottage kitchen. So let me tell you, this is not my dream kitchen. However, when we moved in, I didn't really see the sense in tearing out cupboards and tearing out floors. And I just decided to make the most of what was already here, just maybe adding a little bit more warmth and character. And the first thing that I did is I changed the hardware to like a antique or a brass knobs and pulls, and I think that gives it some warmth in here. I added like a cafe curtain, and you know, obviously I've got lots of plants and things, wood tones. I added some cupboards that are freestanding, old vintage cupboards, and I also like little lamps, and just tried to make it a little bit more characterful. I love to bake. I'm always baking with the kids, making muffins or cakes or cookies. And my husband is more of the meat and potatoes chef, but we do share kitchen duties. I added this border. Instead of painting, I love a white kitchen, but I did add this border in here. And we hung some freestanding cabinets or the plate rack just to give it a little bit more warmth. I found this table from a vintage reseller who has a shop locally to me, and it's perfect. I mean, we cram around it, but it's nice, and it's a lovely place to have our meals. I added the porcelain light fixture, and yeah, this is a garland of hens, bantam hens. So I love the warm wood tones. I added this glazed cupboard, and it's just freestanding, but it gives some extra storage without looking too fitted. I collect a lot of ironstone, which is kind of these pieces here, and they get kind of aged over time, and they have this darkening spots on them, and I just think they look really lovely. So I do have those all around the house. Okay, and this is the laundry room, which joins through from the kitchen, and this is where all the work gets done, where I, wash stains constantly out of clothes and do the laundry, hang things up to dry. And then it's where the pantry is and the refrigerator. So it's just kind of the working heart of the kitchen, the downstairs. Okay, and this is the boot room or mud room, which I did a really fun wallpaper in here. And this is where we just come in, throw our shoes in the basket. In the wintertime, it's very cluttered with coats and raincoats, but this time of year it's just hats, picnic blankets, and the brushes and things that we use around the house. This is an old telephone bench. It used to have like a little table on it, but I took that off, and this is where you would sit on the telephone and make your calls back in the day. So now it's just a place where the kids can sit down and take their shoes on and off, and yeah, it's usually piled up with things. Okay, so we're gonna head upstairs. Let me show you. Come on up. These two old crests were from the coronation of Pope Pius in 1854, and they were hung up in an old French village hall to commemorate him becoming Pope. And I found these in a local antique store and just thought they were really beautiful, so they're hanging there. I was talking about that funny design, and some of the rooms are all joined up. Two of my children's rooms are connecting, so I'll take you through and you can see those. This is my daughter Daisy's room. She's the only girl in the house, so it's very feminine and floral. I love this wallpaper by Sophia Harpley. This is my daughter's bed. It has this beautiful linen canopy and this pink and green gingham. She has these lovely bed linens. The duvet cover is in this beautiful green leafy print by Sarah Kay Designs, and she has the little gingham pillowcase embroidered with her name, and that's from a local maker here in the UK, Chateau Matilda. And this is her dollhouse. Inside, it's the little mice, the little mouse house. Instead of little dolls, they're little mice living in here, and it's really cute. This beautiful chest is just a very weathered piece that we brought over. I bought it in Luckett's, Virginia at the Luckett store. One of my all-time favorite places to find antiques in Virginia. The bobbin spool shelf is an old vintage shelf that I sourced from a lovely lady who does all the vintage fairs here, and I got this from her. This lovely little chair, this tiny child-size chair, button-back chair, is in a Jasper print, which is really pretty, and it's a great little child-size vintage chair. The window treatments are in this billowy balloon-style Roman shade in this beautiful Warner House Acorns fabric. So my daughter's room connects into my son's room, which is great. It's really lovely. At night you can hear them talking to each other through their rooms as they fall asleep. This is an old pine cot. We call it a crib. Over here they call it a cot. It has a lovely little canopy by Tori Murphy Textiles in this wide, beautiful stripe with the little pom-poms. Over the bed are these little Viking ships, which are really sweet. And they dance around. The chest of drawers is just an old painted chest of drawers. This print is from a local artist here. Her name's Tabby Booth. I love the cowboy boots. All my boys love wearing cowboy boots, so this is such a sweet, nostalgic picture to have in their room. The bookshelf we've had this since our eldest was little. It's by Oof in New York City. They do these amazing modular shelves. You can just fill it full of books. The little lantern here is by a company in the Netherlands, and the lantern, you can switch out the scenes. And they have so many beautiful artists. You can change it with the seasons to reflect, different scenes of childhood. Some that are really sweet and remind me of where we live here in the English countryside. This is an old vintage sign where someone who was doing script. It's an old French sign. I drove all the way to the coast to pick it up for £15, and then I spent unknowingly an insane amount to frame it in this old frame. But it's just a lovely touch in the boys' room. So the guest room is over here on the other side, kind of tucked away. So follow me around the corner. So this is the guest room, and I bought these beds in America, old cherry beds with the little finials, 4-poster finials. I painted them myself because they were kind of in bad condition. They were quite old. And I just love them. And I think they're charming in a cottage guest bedroom. I always think my guests like sleeping like Ricky and Lucy from I Love Lucy, and they're two separate beds. But I just think they're really charming in these beautiful cottagey floral prints. All of the bedding is from a company called Storybook, and they just do lovely, lovely linens. This old painting is from a vintage fair, and this cupboard is actually a pot cupboard. It's where you would store your heavy pots, but I'm using it as a old bedside table. The wallpaper is actually a Sandberg design, and they're actually, if you look closely, they're dandelions, but they've done them in this pink and blue colorway, which is really, really charming. And I love that it's paying homage to the simple, lowly dandelion. It looks really lovely in here, I think. And then the curtains I bought at a charity shop. They were, somebody didn't need them anymore, and I found them and they work perfectly in this room. So, okay, the last room I'd like to show you is our bedroom, our main bedroom. So come with me and have a look. Okay, welcome into our bedroom. This is the main bedroom, the biggest bedroom. I never really have any design plan, and this room is really evidence of that. I really like mixing patterns and different textures, and I definitely don't match things, so it's very mismatched in here, which I really like. And I've done a wallpaper in kind of blues and brown. It's like a pomegranate theme, but then with the canopy, I've gone with a heavier but striped floral in this cream with pinks and greens. The wallpaper in here really stumped me for a long time, and it was one of the last rooms that I wallpapered. I ended up just ordering a bunch of samples, and this one I never really thought would be the front runner, but it actually turned out being my favorite. So I do recommend looking at those samples in person, because you never know which one is going to pop out at you. And I'm really glad I went with this pattern. It's really bold but moody, and it's a perfect fit for this space. Just talking about mixing patterns and prints, I just really loved this paisley in a very kind of neutral color, with this paired with this ruffle top in a pinstripe from Tightly and Mar, and I just love the way it mixes together with the pattern and the wallpaper that we already have. Home to me means being with my family, and whether that's my husband and my children or my extended family when my parents and my brother come to visit and I have more of my family around me. Home is a place that should just be filled with love. Thank you so much, Homeworthy, for coming to visit me today. It's been so lovely having you. Unfortunately, my children are home from school now, so I really need to go and get those snack plates made. But thanks again, and come back anytime. Take care. Bye.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Rachel. Welcome to my home in the North Shore of Chicago. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Rachel Johansson, and I'm a keynote speaker, and I'm a luxury brand strategist. So I am behind the scenes doing the marketing, the branding, the sales strategy behind some really brilliant creatives, interior designers, international event planners, and I get to help them tell their story and fully launch their brand into the luxury market. So we are in the North Shore of Chicago, and we are just steps away from Lake Michigan and about 40 minutes from downtown Chicago. And we are in my home, and we lovingly named it Snowdrop Cottage. It's a 1929 David Adler carriage house. And what's really special about this property is just next door, there was a massive estate. And this home in particular was where they stored the cars. So this home is the original man cave. And our kitchen was where there was a big pool table and there was a chauffeur's apartment upstairs. And this home feels like it came out of like a Snow White little fairy tale. This home is French country inspired, and we have this beautiful little turret, which is just such a magical little spot in the home that has little nooks and secret hiding spots that my daughter, who is 8 months today, her name's Lida, she will grow up in this home and be able to look out the window and see the deer. I love the architecture. I love the history. It just feels magical. There's so many European homes out here. We, for a while, were splitting time between downtown Chicago and we were in Charleston, South Carolina. And I just love the history and the charm of Charleston, but didn't like the humidity. So we knew that the North Shore was where we wanted. We decided, my husband and I had a conversation and we said, you know, if we want to be here in the North Shore of Chicago, we just need to get down here. Let's not wait for the dream property. Let's just get boots on the ground so when something pops up, we can dig in and we can be the first one in line. One day we're like on Zillow very late at night and my husband goes like, I think we found it. And I don't think you're gonna feel like we're settling on this home. And we saw the property and I said, I love David Adler. This is the property. It was a little bit outside of the location we wanted to be in. But we called our realtor and I said, Andy, I'm sorry, I know it's late, but tomorrow morning, like, can you please get into this home? It's been on the market for like less than 48 hours. He FaceTimed me the next morning and he walked me through, and no joke, by 9 a.m. on my second latte, we were like, this is it, let's put an offer, never saw the property. And we ended up purchasing this home. It's a really special little gem. This is my second favorite room in our home. And this home here, Storybook Cottage, is a carriage house. So there was a 17,000 square foot estate and it belonged to the Strauss family. And they were super prominent bankers. And this home is where they stored all of their cars. So it was a 3-car garage, this property, and it had a chauffeur's apartment upstairs. So the island was not here. This was a billiards table. And I always like to think of Mr. Strauss like smoking his cigar, hanging out here. The fireplace is original. So they would hang out with their cars, they would smoke cigars, and they would be in the billiard space. And I just really love how this was reinvented for today. And these greenhouse windows, I think, are so special. It brings in so much natural light. And we are overlooking a ravine. So in winter, it'll be all snow, and I will see little deer and their mama out the window, which feels incredibly special. And we purchased this home only a year and a half ago, and I feel really, really grateful that the previous owners, they put a lot of work into this property. They redid the entire kitchen, and I really came in and styled it. I feel lucky. I mean, we put in custom seats over here, and it allows it to feel a little bit more layered, but they had the bones of this property done really, really well. And my husband and I, we just love to cook. Everyone always asks, like, who's the cook? Is it myself or is it him? And it's really both of us. This is our family hangout zone. We cook here, we'll hang here, I'll do emails here, and this is just a special place where we spend a huge, huge chunk of our daily life. And this over here is probably one of my favorite pieces in the home. It is a photograph of my family's business, and this is my great-grandfather, and he was a grocer, and he owned a little grocery store on Fifth Avenue in New York City. And I love history, not only architecture, but also family history. And my grandfather, who's loves my life, he spent a lot of time when he retired doing a whole entire research study of our family, and he came across these photos and had it printed for me. So I think this is really special. And my husband and I always like to joke that, like, I'm a serial entrepreneur through and through, and it came from my family doing grocery work back in the day. And I feel like now that I have Snowdrop Cottage and I have this home, I never, ever, ever again want to have a home that doesn't have a fireplace. And I'm joking, but I'm also serious because Chicago is so cold in the winter, and being able to make a latte and sit here with my laptop and have the fire going and have music playing is completely my happy place, and it is somewhere that I just really enjoy spending so much time. Now, I think what's also really special about this home is the previous owners, they worked with what they had. They built these beautiful cabinets that have so much storage. I'm not going to show you guys because it is a mess. Like, this is like a pantry. We have lots of baby food in there right now, but they have these beautiful built-ins, and at the same time, they offer the opportunity to do these cozy little nooks. I got this Schumacher ticking stripe done, this custom seat, and I will sit here with my baby on my lap, and my husband will walk out, and we'll try to wave. She's not really getting it yet, but eventually I think she will. And this is a place where we play, where we hang, where we sing, where, you know, I will sit with my laptop and do a few emails. So this is definitely a really, really special spot. And the holy grail is the coffee stand. I love this station so much. I feel like my friends and my followers and clients on Instagram, I think that this is like the only part of my home that they see on a daily basis. I have way too many lattes, and this is where I hang out, and I make my lattes, and I have a fun special time in the morning. I am a new collector to copper, and I found this amazing company called Copper Mill Kitchen, and there's a small business owner, her name's Beth, and her and I have become friends on Instagram, and I've started to collect some really special pieces from her. So these are all in there, and I also think that this is really special. If you guys know Ralph Lauren coffee, like Ralph's Coffee, I love Ralph Lauren, and I was so inspired by Ralph's Coffee and the design. So my husband and I got custom cups made to look like Ralph's Coffee, but I think the interesting part of this story is it says Johnson on them and not Johansson. So my husband's father, he passed during COVID, and for his entire life, he also loved genealogy and family history. He did a deep dive, and he said, listen guys, like, it's not Johnson, it's actually Johansson. It wasn't changed that long ago. It was changed in the 20s when the family came over from Sweden, and he always said, I eventually want to change our name back. It's not right. You know, he just did this whole deep dive of research. And he passed, sadly, during COVID. And when my husband and I got married, we were sitting in the Massachusetts little court, and they said, you know, we wrote down our name's going to be Johnson, and the clerk said, you know, whatever you guys write down, make sure the spelling's right, because that's going to be your last name. And my husband just made a side comment, and he was like, you probably see Johnson a lot, but it's actually Johansson. It got traded over, you know, the same Ellis Island story that everyone's had. And she said, you know, you guys, whatever you put down, it truly is your last name. If you want to change your name, like, you guys can do it. And it was a really special moment. It was the day before our wedding, and his father was obviously not there. To honor him, my husband and I both changed our last name to how it was originally spelled, Johansson, so an extra A. And these mugs we had made before the wedding. So they are Ralph's Coffee, and they're with the Johnson name, which is pretty special. So I love having my morning coffee out of there. And something that I have been collecting for years, my husband's like, this is kind of quirky of you, but I love vintage spoons. I think they're so fun. I have them in so many different shapes, colors, sizes, and they pop in here. So I make all my friends a special latte or a matcha, and they'll get a little special spoon with a Johnson mug. And over here, this is my little Peanuts eating area. She's very new to solids, and we are noticing that lots of messes have been happening. So we just recently moved this oil painting up a little bit because she can't fully reach it. But this is my Peanuts little nook, and this is where she has her breakfast. And this morning, for the first time, she tried carrots, and like, I think we have a good eater on her hand. I don't think she's picky, but we'll see. But this is her little special area. So I would say aesthetically, I lean towards like how I dress is a little Ralph Lauren classic, but I always like kind of want to be a cool French girl. So I like to think of my interior style as this Ralph Lauren classic meets a little bit of French. But at the same time, Snowdrop Cottage is a French country home. So we don't have this big, massive library. It's a carriage house. So when I designed this home, I wanted to have a little bit of Parisian glamour that have like the glitz and the glamour with some like really beautiful antique mirrors from Paris markets. But at the same time, I wanted it to feel English and I wanted it to feel layered. So I use lots of mixing of patterns. I mean, you'll see throughout this property, there's toile, there's block print, there's little ticking stripes. There's a lot of mix of patterns going on. So this is a special property with, I would say, a little bit of hint of French glamour meets like really comfortable and layered English interiors with an American twist. Welcome to my library / dining room. It depends on the day of what it is. We have a leaf on this table and it will get as big as up to 10. This is where I love doing my emails. I love sitting here and being inspired by books. And I just love, like everyone who loves interior design, I love these beautiful coffee table books. I recently found this David Adler book, and this came from like some specialty bookseller because they didn't make too many of them. And I found our home in the book, and this made me so excited. So this is Mr. and Mrs. Strauss's house. This is the big guy that's next door. And when I say next door, it's really about a mile away. They own hundreds of acres. They had 4 different properties. So they had the carriage house, they had this house, they had a huge guest cottage with 6 bedrooms, and they owned all the property in between. So it is really like a mile away, and I get to run by this big home all the time. And then I was flipping through and I found our home in the book. And that just felt so special to me. And this is where I worked with the Southern Crafted Shutters, like that company, to make the original shutters, which is just really, really special. So this stays here, and I love just being able to look at it and look at all of the beautiful properties that David Adler did. And this little nook over here, I always like to joke. And I'm like, I don't even know if it's a joke, but it's serious. Like, this is my dog's bed. So I have 2 puppies. I have Lolly, and she's 45 pounds. She's 9 years old. And she loves this Robert Kime vintage settee, and this is her sleeping area. And I always call this her little night light. I'll dim it at night, and I'll go upstairs and I'll say goodnight, and she's sleeping on her little dog bed, which is so funny and so silly. So this is her sleeping area. I found this settee on Facebook Marketplace, and this woman was obsessed with Robert Kime. She spent a ton of time in England and became obsessed with all of his work, and she had tons of special pieces, and she was downsizing. I wanted like 15 of them, but they weren't for sale because her daughter was taking them, but she gave me this guy, which feels really special. We also covered all of our dining chairs in this linen Schumacher ticking stripe. You'll see this throughout the home. And a little bit more on this space. These are some vintage butter dishes, which I just think are cool and are special. And once again, like, this is a library / office. So I have my little pens, I have my candle, and this is where sometimes I will like take this chair and I'll turn it around and I'll sit here and I'll type late at night. And like everyone that loves interior design, I have a massive stack of magazines that sits in a big basket and almost feels like a hoarder's collection of magazines, but it helps me become inspired. And it's also where I do my mood board. And I think ever since I was 10 years old, I've loved creating mood boards. And I had one in my bedroom growing up, and still as an adult, I do mood boarding. Sometimes it's on Pinterest and sometimes it's in my home. And I like to think my design style is, of course, like English matched with a little Parisian, but I also think it's really sentimental. And there are so many pieces in this home that have a meaning to myself and my husband. I think that the little things are actually big things. So like just last week, my grandfather wrote me a note about like how not to burn a steak. And he sent me over a newspaper clipping from the Wall Street Journal. So that goes on there. I have like really fun little stamps that came from our wedding invitation. So I like to keep all of the things and I like to display them throughout the home. This Belgian trunk came from an antique dealer. I love this piece. I think it's beautiful. I think it's special. And I think when Lida gets older, where I'm not worried about the hinges, I think this would be a beautiful piece to go into her bedroom, and maybe we could store quilts or blankets or sleeping bags or all of the toys. So this will forever be a piece that's in our home. You know, when you find those forever pieces and you're like, I'm going to bring them with me, that's one of them. And I just love the idea of having a home that evolves with you over time. We've only lived here for a year and a half, but a lot of these pieces I have been collecting for years, and now I get the opportunity to display them in this special property. And being someone that is so sentimental, I became obsessed with David Austin flowers. They did all of my wedding roses, and whenever we have special occasions, I call David Austin and I buy bouquets from them, and you guys are such a special occasion. I'm so happy you guys are here. So these are David Austin roses. I did these exact ones in white for our wedding, and I just think they're lovely and beautiful, and you will see them throughout the home. And you know, I think something special about having Homeworthy come is your home is in really great condition. So for someone to say that you haven't put a lot of thought into it is not the case. There's a lot of thought that goes into having you guys come. So we're having a dinner party tonight, and I'm really excited because I'm going to share some of these roses with some of my friends. Right before you go upstairs and right into the family room, I think one of the coolest things about our home, and my husband spent so much time to figure this out, was he added in so much brilliant technology. And I think that people think when you have a historic home that you can't include modern technology. And I think this is such a perfect example of doing something different. So we have these light switches, and we can put in family photos, and we can change them by room. So we just did a mommy-daughter little photo shoot out in the garden, in the courtyard. So those are here. And then upstairs in the bedroom, we have almost like this huge display of dog photos. And I think it's really special. And sometimes when we have people coming over, I'll make a note to my husband, like, hey, your mom's coming, like my mother-in-law, like, let's put up a bunch of photos. And she's so sweet that she'll think like all the photos were like specifically for her. So it's just a fun little moment to incorporate into our home. Welcome to our family room. This space is, I always like to think like a little cozy little snug. We have these English rolled arm sofas that we got custom made from Co. I think it stands for Custom Cozy Couches or something like that. My husband is 6'3", so he wanted something that was long, and it offered him some space to get cozy and watch TV. So these were done in this beautiful velvet. I think I will have these forever. I feel like they really are a staple, and we can recover them for years to come, and they're really cozy. We have a 105-pound Rottweiler, Archie. He's my big buddy. And when we got these sofas made, I had them send me a bunch of swatches, and I was worried about him shedding. So I took all of the velvet swatches and I petted him with each one to figure out where the black was showing up or not showing up. And these are perfect. They hide so much. And if you follow me a little bit more over here, we have this beautiful French antique. And I think this is the only piece that we have in our home that came from my side of the family. And this is a piece that is in the family room that stores all of the games, and it's right by the fireplace. And my husband and I like to sit on cozy Chicago nights and play Yahtzee or categories together. So this is a special piece. And over here, we have our fireplace. I am someone who has the fireplace going on throughout the year. And this is a gas fireplace, which is so lovely and nice. At the same time, it kind of looks like it's wood burning. So I think it brings that historic charm, but still works for modern living. And on this piece, this is like, so special to me. This is another sentimental piece that I've like held on until the end of time. So my husband and I, on our first date, he gave me these. He went to go to a florist and they closed early, and he was like, in his head, he was like, I want to get her something, but like everything's closed, so he didn't know what to do. And he was walking by a little lotion shop, La Octane, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, but they were selling dried lavender. So he grabbed this for me, and I've kept it, and I will forever keep it. And I think it's a special piece that I have. And I have been collecting lots of little white vases throughout the home that you'll see. So this is one that I think just is lovely, and it offers a little bit of dimension. And I've also been collecting lots of these like pretty silver boxes. So I have a bunch of these throughout the home, and these are now my binky storage. So I have one on the coffee table or cocktail table over here that stores binkies for my daughter. So I think you can kind of have something that works for everyday living too, but still feels a little bit chic. So we have those guys there. And I recently found these little sconce shades. These came from Mrs. Alice, and they are a English brand. And if you guys get a second for like the best case study of an experiential brand, like Mrs. Alice is it. She is like British royalty and created this really cool company with tons of pattern. I just think she's fabulous, and she's my new girl crush. So these are Mrs. Alice. And also, throughout our home, we have lots of these beautiful candlesticks, these vintage candlesticks. So for my husband and my wedding, so we were married January 7th. We got married in Massachusetts, like really close on the border of upstate New York, where I grew up. And I wanted to be fully candlelit. Like I wanted no other lighting other than candles. So I spent almost a year leading up to our wedding sourcing and finding candlesticks on Facebook Marketplace. I found them on Goodwill. I would go into Salvation Army, and we had hundreds. I literally flew with suitcases of candlesticks. The venue was like, what the heck is up with this girl? This is a fire hazard. Like I had to buy special insurance for our wedding. But I love this because we get to now use these all the time, and they're throughout the home. They're just scattered everywhere. So candlesticks we'll use for birthdays, we'll use for cocktail parties, and they travel with us forever. This is also a really fun, cozy seat. This is vintage Ralph Lauren, and another dog bed for my 45-pound puppy. She loves to sit here and curl up. And once again, it hides so much, which I think is just incredibly special. And I love the layered paisley here. We recently got these Schumacher pieces. I'll sit up here also with my daughter, and we'll play up here, which is a special little spot. We have tons of matchboxes, which I think is just so fun to collect. And whenever we go on date night, I'm always like grabbing one of these and putting it in my purse, and I like to keep them. And they also are obviously like something that you can use when you're looking to design your space a little bit. And something that I had such a fun time doing was getting books done that felt like they were coffee table books that you would get from Rizzoli. So I found a company called Milk Books, I think, and my husband and I got a coffee table book about our honeymoon when we went to Egypt, which is so fun. We also have one of our wedding, and we have another one that we just did for our daughter for her 6-month kind of anniversary of life. So we have all these fun coffee table books throughout our home that just tell the story of our family. And we got them all with kind of like the label on the side. So I'll say like Johansson Wedding, Johansson Honeymoon, Lyda Johansson. And I think these are really, really special. And they also feel like they go with the rest of the decor. My husband is the techie guy, and he said, honey, do whatever you want. I will live in the Snowdrop Cottage. I will live in Snow White's house. I will live anywhere you want to go, but please let me have my technology. So he did the TV, and he got it as close to the windows and as much space as humanly possible. So I let him have his thing, and it is fun. It is a cool place to watch movies and have the fire lit, and we just enjoy a lot of family time here. We also had these beautiful pieces, custom made, which just allows a lot of extra seating. And when we have people over, I mean, we'll play board games here. We'll move all of this. We'll light the fire. This offers so much seating for everyone to hang out. And we have friends that have kids, and they love to climb up here. And I just think it's a beautiful spot to really gather together. And we have, on anchoring both sides of our windows, we have these bookshelves. And like everyone that loves design, I love to collect coffee table books. So I have them on probably every category, probably over 100, 150, 200 in this house. So everything from, you know, fashion designers to the New York City Ballet. And this one's about shipwrecked treasures, which is fun. And within these bookshelves, I have a lot of family and personal items in here. This is a piece that recently I acquired, came from an estate sale, but it reminded me of one that my mother-in-law had that unfortunately was broken. So as I saw this one, it almost felt like it came from the same collection. So this was a really, really special find. And I think it was like $9.99, which just made me so happy. I have photos of my daughter from a recent family photo shoot of our little Peanut that are just fun to look at and see. I have a picture in here of my husband when he was 16 and he had one day on a race course. So I think that the green is pretty. We have a lot of like green, gold, and some purple. So I found this and incorporated it into our bookshelves. And once again, tried to incorporate kind of like these green, these velvets, kind of like this Ralph Lauren cozy library within this space. These beautiful two pieces were found at an estate sale, or actually an antique shop when I was in Detroit. I think they were $9.99, and I had no idea where they were going to go at the time. We were not living in this home, but I felt like I could not leave them there or else I would think about it until the end of the time. So they came here, and I think that they're such a perfect piece to anchor this other piece of art that I found in Asheville, North Carolina when I was traveling. And I think that, you know, traveling to different little antique shops or popping into estate sales when you're traveling, it just brings you a lot of different perspectives on design from different areas of the country. I found this old tapestry. This actually came from eBay. And I love that it's kind of tattered. I think it's fun. I heard from the eBay listing, right? So who knows? But this was a early 19th century tapestry. And then it was remade into a pillow. The woman, I guess, had some issue. She had a big piece and she had to cut some pieces off, and she made this into a pillow. And I just think it's special and fun. And I love the layering of all of this. So I got into my line of work when I was really, really young. So I went to High Point University in North Carolina, which is the furniture capital of the world, thinking I wanted to study interior design. And as soon as I was exploring the courses and realizing, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much math, there's so much science involved. Like, this actually isn't me. What I really love and enjoy is being around these gorgeous interiors. This is where I feel the most inspired. But there's a piece of my brain that really enjoys the strategy element. So really early on in college, I was working High Point Market. I was helping the sales teams, you know, perform their orders or helping to walk people around the showroom. And I realized I love the marketing side and I love the inspiration and the combo of the two. So I started my first business in my college dorm room, which is like so silly and so funny. I was being paid nothing. I was bartering my services for like a Bravo, what is it called? Like turkey bacon sandwich at Panera, or I was doing it for free wine. And then I ended up graduating college and just further leaning into this journey. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to be celebrating 10 years in business. And over the years, I have had such a joy of a lifetime to be behind these really fabulous women that are so brilliant at their craft and so wonderful at planning events if they're an event planner, or doing stunning interiors and full gut renovations and being the marketing side and the strategy and the sales side behind their brand. I feel so lucky that I get to work with such amazing creative women. And when I was designing this home, I leaned on them to help me make some decisions. And I always say, like, I love beautiful things and I love the strategy side of design, but like, I'm not a designer. So sometimes I would pick out a light fixture. And I remember one time I had a client and she looked at me and she was like, wait, what? That for this room? I couldn't figure out the scale. It's just not my thing. So I really enjoyed the selection process. I love the layering process. And then once in a while, there's probably like 5 decisions in this home, like, you know, how tall to hang a light fixture or the scale of something, where I had some of my clients like give me like a thumbs up or just literally give me a thumbs down and say, try again, sister. So it is, you know, the home was designed by me, but I had some brilliant clients that said yes or no on a few particular items. So now we're in the guest suite, and this is where our friends love to come and spend the night and hang out with us here. Something really special that the previous owners left were these window treatments. I'm obsessed with these. I could not believe they left them. They said it just didn't work in their new home, and I was like, score. So I already had this built-in kind of scheme of doing something that felt really soft and feminine and also had some blue tones. So I had this idea. I was like, okay, wait a minute. I have some really cool little like French pieces or antiques that I could incorporate into this space. So I wanted to bring kind of like this blue cream throughout the entire room. We had this rug recently made from Sisal Rugs Direct. They did custom cuts of everything, which is really special. I have Sisals throughout the rest of the home, but I got them before I gave birth. And now my daughter is starting to crawl. I felt like I needed something a little bit softer. So we did a different rug here in the guest suite rather than the rest of the home. This is one of my favorite pieces in our entire home. My parents, for our wedding, gave my husband and I a pair of these beautiful, beautiful French mirrors. We have another one in storage because we just don't have the space or the scale for this home. So I think this is just such a beautiful piece, and I wanted to incorporate some of the blues or a little grape key, Sherpa, just something cozy that our guests could have just a wonderful little stay. Our friends will sometimes like take these and, you know, put them in the closet or somewhere, and they will put their luggage over here on the stool, which I just think is creative and fun. These are more beautiful David Austin roses, which I just think are lovely and beautiful throughout the property. I was visiting my family in upstate New York, and I was with my mom. We were at a grocery store. We were traveling somewhere, and we were walking past this barber shop, and I saw these 2 chairs. They did not have the leather. They were not painted. They were like falling apart. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with them. My mom did not know what I was talking about. Like, I was like, the chair. She was like, which ones? They look gross. I love the arms of them. I went inside the barber shop and I was like, hey, you know those chairs that you have outside? I'm like curious, would you be open to selling them to me? They literally thought they were garbage. Like, they weren't even sure where they came from. And they said, yeah, for $20, you can have them. Like, kind of take them off our hands. So I was thrilled. Recovered these, repainted them. And then the same company, the custom couch company that did our sofas in the family room, they created these seats for me, which I just think are lovely and cozy, and I'll have them until the end of the time for $20, which is wild. And over on this wall, this was such a dream come true and so special. My husband and I had our wedding featured in the New York Times, and we woke up in the morning, a few days after the wedding, and it was there, and we clipped it, and this is just something that we wanted to have forever. So this is framed here, and it just reminds us of our really special day. And what's really special, I think, about this guest suite is that there is this beautiful ensuite connected, and it's really big and it's really full. So it's a large bathroom. This is a new addition to the house, which is kind of wild to me because it feels like it was original with this pedestal stank. I have heard, and I know this is crazy, but maybe you guys can relate to it. I have never showered in the guest room downstairs. There just hasn't been a reason or a need to, but I've heard the water pressure is amazing here, and maybe someday I'll have a need to shower down here. But until then, I think this is a really, really special place for our friends and our family to come stay in this space. This whole entire guest suite was an addition that the previous owners put on the property because the carriage house only had a small square footage and they wanted an extra bedroom. And I feel so grateful that they did this project and they did such an exceptional job on it. The ceilings are so tall. I think they're close to 20 feet. And they have lighting in these little brackets or these beams. And I just think it feels light and bright. And it feels like it is a space that could honestly be a primary suite. My husband and I have talked about, like, maybe we should move down here. Except we don't have a bathtub down here. But it does feel like a really special space that's just right off the family room. And it overlooks a garden in the front yard. Welcome to our primary suite. The space is actually pretty large, which allowed us to put a whole entire, almost full-size sofa in the space to watch TV. And since my daughter was recently born, like 8 months ago, for the first 3 months, this was really, we like to call it, the 4-poster bed was our headquarters. I would text my girlfriends and FaceTime them and they say, are you in the HQ? So this is where emails would happen. Our baby would sleep with us. My husband and I would be here. She'd be taking naps and the puppies would come hang out with us. So this is the headquarters and that's the new nickname for this space. Over here, we have this beautiful, large storage chest. It's a historic home. It's from 1929 and it was a carriage home. So it was never used as someone's full-time residence. So we had to get really creative with storage. Like even our nightstands are massive. Like those have undies in there and those have bathing suits in there because we needed to get creative. One of my favorite pieces, I think, in this space, or favorite collection, are these vintage Christian Dior frames. I had a girlfriend who knew that I loved vintage Dior and she found these, I think on like First Dibs or Cherish as a wedding gift. So we did tons of special black and white photos of our family, and these are just fun, beautiful reminders that we get to see every day. And I think something that's also pretty special is this piece of artwork. I was staying at an Airbnb in Asheville, North Carolina, and it had a staircase, and it was a black staircase, and it was this massive, like 15, 20-foot ceilings, and they had so much artwork. It was like a massive gallery wall, and I was walking down the stairs, and I saw this piece, and I'm like, I'm obsessed. I need this piece. And my husband was like, what? Like, no, there's no way. This is not like a stay here and purchase it with tags on it. But I was just obsessed, and I was thinking about it for like all 4 days that we were there. And we were on the Airbnb chat. There was some issue with something going on with the oven, and we were talking to the owner. And I said, by the way, something's going on with the oven. We can't figure it out. What's going on with the gas. P.S. I'm really curious about this piece. Would you be open to selling it? And I think he kind of felt bad about the oven. And I also think that he wasn't attached to this piece and he didn't even know really which one I was talking about till I sent a picture. But he said, yes, you can have it. And when you like find something you're just in love with and you're going to have it until the end of time, this is one of them. It just spoke to me and I don't know why, but I love it. And something I love to do throughout our home is I love to rip out little pieces from coffee table books. I was reading a book years ago and the inscription said, this is dedicated to the ones I love. Like, this is dedicated to the ones I love. I thought that was so sweet. So I ripped it out and I put it here. And I thought if I was to ever write a book or if I was to ever produce a movie, this is dedicated to the ones I love. It's just, I think, a really sentimental little piece. And similar to probably so many of you Homeworthy viewers, when I travel and I'm in beautiful hotels or I'm staying somewhere, I'm always looking around for inspiration and ideas. And I think something beautiful about, boutique hotels is they always have water by the bedside. And we were staying in Round Hill, Jamaica, and I saw these. And they literally came from Amazon. I just thought they were lovely. And I was like, I need this. Like, no longer am I going to be just bringing up a cup of water. They came from Amazon. And they just came from also Round Hill inspiration. So this is my husband's nook over here that I've styled a little bit for him. Also in this space, this came from my mother-in-law. I just think the colors are so beautiful. Like, look at those details. I think it's lovely. This was in her dining room and she used this as a china storage cabinet and had a bunch of napkins in here. And when she downsized, she was going to list this. And I said, wait, I love it. I have no idea where I'll put it, but please, can I take it? What are your thoughts? So she is so happy that this is in our home. And as mentioned, storage is hard in a historic home. So this is actually my handbag storage. So I put all of my bags in this little chest or in this little closet. And it has a fun little lock on it, which is just it feels like this old piece of history from my mother-in-law that's now used for everyday living. In this space as well, we have some really fun prints. We did kind of this small gallery wall. I have my daughter's little feet, when you're at the hospital, at Northwestern, they stamped them I cut them up and then I put them into this frame. Something special that we also have over in this little space here is these prints, and I have them going up the stairs, going up the stairs from downstairs to upstairs. This came from Savannah, and I was in this little antique shop, and this woman went to Paris, and she came back with a collection of these little like printouts, and they had different fabric swatches. And back in the 1800s, she was telling me that this dressmaker, she collected all these fabric swatches and then she put numbers on it. So this is like 945 or 943. And women would go in to purchase a gown and she would say, which one do you want? And here's my fabric swatches, here's my trim. So I bought like 10 of them from her and then I framed all of them. So we have them going up the stairs from downstairs to upstairs. And I also just put it here as a bonus little extra. And I just love sentimental details. Once again, I just think that the little moments are really big moments. So this is my grandmother's charm bracelet that my grandfather gave to her when she was 16 years old on her 16th birthday. It's not a piece that I wear, but I have it here and I love to look at it, and I will eventually give this to my daughter. Like, here's the sweet 16. Little charm. He has them on here for when she gave birth to her first child, for their first anniversaries, and I just think it's a really special little token to keep. And I also think that homes should have not only sentimental pieces, but pieces that make you laugh. And I don't think I've ever laughed harder in my entire life than when we went to get my baby her passport photo. She looks like a mini judge / mafia boss. It made me laugh so hard. My husband took her to CVS to get the photo done. They put a little cloak on her. She obviously can't sit or stand. So we had to hold her up and then they would take a photo because we couldn't be in it. So I've never laughed harder in my life. There's an extra little photo for the passport. So I framed this little guy to have next to me. And off of our bedroom, we have our primary bath. And this home also has a Jack and Jill with my daughter's bedroom. So once again, it's a super special home, and in the middle of the night, I go from our bedroom to her bedroom to get her a bottle, but this home won't work long-term because of the Jack and Jill, because I know my daughter at 18 years old does not want to share a bathroom with her mom, but for now it works perfect to have this set up. We have this beautiful tub, which I just think is so lovely and so fun, and we love doing bath time with my daughter, and the duckies are a new addition from a friend, and they make bath time just so much fun. And I'm always looking to incorporate interesting and unique artwork throughout the home. So this came from an estate sale not too long ago, which I just think is such a beautiful addition and the right scale for this little bathtub. What's really special about this space too is that it overlooks the courtyard. So we have like a little cafe curtain here, but in every single window we have window boxes. So I'll hear the little birdies in the window boxes. We get florals done throughout the year for all 4 seasons. So I think this is just lovely. And sometimes, like, honestly, like, I'll be like getting ready and I'm like, oh my gosh, what time is it? Like, I think we have friends coming over. I'll come in here because no one thinks to look out the window, and I look out to see who's coming, which I think is just kind of fun. In this space as well, my husband and I, we have this shared vanity. And I love how the previous owners did this, you guys. Like, I didn't do it. And I just love the selections that they made. It feels classic, but it also feels modern. I love these mirrors. I love the symmetry. And I just think they did such a lovely job. And they worked with the space once again. Like, this didn't have plumbing. This was a chauffeur's apartment, and there was like a bathroom on the other side in this bedroom, and they remade this whole entire area. It has a sloped ceiling, and they took fun subway tile, once again classic, up to the ceiling, and they also did within the shower beautiful tile throughout and in the little nook as well. So it is the perfect space. It's the right amount of storage, and the layout works really well for our family. So let me show you my daughter's nursery, my favorite spot in this home. My favorite room in this home is my daughter's nursery. I love this space. We painted all of the trim this like really beautiful pink, and I wanted it to feel whimsical and really match the home. And at the same time, I wanted it to be sophisticated and something that she could grow into. And also keeping in mind, like if I eventually wanted to use this home as like a studio space or as some sort of rental, that we didn't have to rip up all the wallpaper and like repaint. Like it could be a really, really cool office space, or it could be a really cool closet. So I love that this room feels really warm and it feels layered. I found this amazing artist on Etsy, and she did oil paintings of little bunnies throughout the space. So I was really inspired to bring in little teeny tiny animals. I have Christmas tree ornaments that I like cut off the top of the Christmas tree, and they're little birds that I like hid on her bookshelf. So it feels like this little magical, whimsical world. It overlooks the courtyard. So there's this window box of flowers, and there used to be a mama bird and a baby bird that had a little nest there. And I think one of the coolest spaces in her bedroom is this little area where you open up the door and it says girls only. And in the turret of the main part of the property, you can walk down the stairs and there's a little teeny tiny hidden nook, and it's like 5'2" in height. My husband can't get up there. He's 6'3", so that's why it's girls only also. And her and I have been feeding there in the middle of the night, and I know it'll eventually be a little play space for her. The nook overlooks the kitchen, so I can just envision her being a little girl and doing like a tap dancing show or some sort of like stage performance to overlook the kitchen. So there's lots of little whimsy in that room, from the hidden nook to the hidden animals to there's beautiful windows, and the tree outlooking the window has little birds that go in there. It's a special little place. This is my favorite room of our entire home. This is my daughter Lida's nursery. It feels whimsical. It feels sophisticated in the sense that she can grow into it in time, and I'm kind of jealous. I wish this was my bedroom too. I think this wallpaper is just so lovely. It feels like almost like you're in this secret garden. And even her view, I'm like, sister, you have the best view ever. It overlooks a whole entire ravine, and we get little birdies that come into the window. We get deer out here. It's snowy. It's winter wonderland in the Chicago winters. I loved this idea also of mixing pattern and kind of having this British feel. So we have this beautiful toile mixed with this beautiful wallpaper, painted all of the trim. I had a friend help me pick out the color, friend and client, which was just really special. And one of the pieces that I had probably for 15 years was this antique children's horse. I went to an estate sale. I was probably like, I have no idea how old I was, like too early to be thinking about nurseries. And I saw this piece and I just fell in love with it. I grew up in upstate New York, so a little bit away, 15-20 minutes away from Saratoga, New York, where they have the horse races. And one of the old jockeys, he had a home and there was an estate sale and they were selling this horse, and I just saw it and I was like, I love it. And I was with my parents at the time, and they were like, all right, like you have a shoebox apartment. You're trying to start a business, like save your money. You don't need a children's antique horse. I fell in love. I needed it. And literally my girlfriends and I would be like sipping our cheap wine and like have the little horse eat with us. And now it's in my daughter's nursery. So in due time, it found its place. This beautiful spindle crib was something that I just thought was lovely. There was so many vintage ones on the market that I fell in love with, these Jenny Lind cribs. But my husband and I were super adamant that we didn't know, in terms of recall, what that looked like. So I searched high and low, and lo and behold, I can't believe it, but I found this at Pottery Barn Kids. And I just think it's a beautiful classic piece that will turn into a toddler bed really, really easily. And I think one of my favorite pieces in this entire space are these oil painted bunnies. I found this amazing artist. I sent her the color scheme of my daughter's room, and she was able to create these lovely, lovely pieces. They have texture, they're beautiful, they're layered, and the mommy and baby bunny just makes me so happy. We call my daughter Bunny all the time. So I think it's a fun little nickname and perfect with these pieces. In this room in particular, there are so many vintage items. I'd say it's probably like 90% like estate sale vintage finds, minus her rocker and also minus the crib. So this was a really fun find. And this old little house, and it says School of the Ballet. As a little girl, I always wanted to be a ballerina. So we'll see what my daughter thinks, but this is so fun. We use this for diaper storage. So this has extra wipes and diapers. I found this little seat at an estate sale. And my daughter fits in it right now. She's 8 months old, so I mean, we hold her in it for like 2 seconds to take a photo. But this went to Leslie, and it has a little note on the end that I was 12. So December 1968. So I thought this was a fun little piece that her bunnies can sit on, and she can take one little photo on it now. This glider came from one of my clients and one of my dear girlfriends, Kathy Quo, and I love the layering as well. So this was a new piece and a new find. This blanket, it's not a blanket, it's actually my scarf, and a little shawl that I used to use before I gave birth, and I just thought the colors were lovely and I wasn't using it. So this sits here with my daughter, and we wrap up cozy at night. And this piece is so special. Oh my gosh. I saw this and I fell in love with it. This came from an antique dealer. This is a French piece, and I wanted to have a piece that she could grow old with. And if she didn't want it, I would gladly raise my hand and take it myself. So this is her changing area. And it's a beautiful French antique, and I think it works lovely. I had so many friends and family saying, Rach, buy a piece that is like from Pottery Barn Kids or Restoration Hardware, or they like do these sets. And I wanted to go do something different and something that she could grow old with. So I think that this is wonderful. And this mirror was also an antique find. And I think what's really special about this mirror is has fall foliage. So I feel like you always see these lovely French mirrors where they have like flowers on them. This has little acorns and leaves. So I think it's really this idea of like this whimsical 4 seasons in her room. And I have so many little hidden animals throughout. I mean, we have the horsey over there. We have the bunnies. We have another little bunny over here. And throughout her bedroom, I have these little, let me see if I could reach and show you guys, these little Christmas ornaments that I got at a Christmas market. And I like pulled off the piece to hang them on trees, and I put little sticky tape, and there's like little owls and there's little birds throughout her bedroom, which I just think are fun. And when we have family friends that come over, you know, that have a 4 or 5 year old, we always say like, how many animals do you think are in the room? And they go try to find them, and no one finds this one. I'm the only one that knows. So this is a fun little piece. And I think Lida's closet is also a moment. Like when I grow up, I would love to be Lida. This is a great closet for a great little girl. This sweet little bunny, this little hat, she came home to the hospital with this hat. This came from Northwestern. You know, they're like this big, their little heads. And I kept the beanie and I put it on her little bunny. So I will forever have this, and she can use it too. We have all of her friends. They're all ready to go. These are French baskets that I got at an antique store. So we use this on a regular basis for her dirty laundry. And this is just a really fun guy. And I think it was used like for a vegetable garden, you know, for carrots and celery and all of the things, but it holds all of her friends. We have antique Peter Rabbit, which is fun. This came from a team member of mine that gave to me that as a gift. And her little sockies, you know, these cute little guys. These are all in little different baskets. So I think that this is such a fun little moment, and it is the perfect size, and it has all these adorable little outfits. Once again, it's like, can I be here when I grow up? I love this closet. So there's lots of little fun moments throughout here. And I think, let me show you over here, because this is a really fun moment too. So I've been starting to think lately, like, am I now a collector of blue small chairs? Like, why do I have multiple blue small chairs? I have that one over here. I found this one at an antique market. So now apparently I'm a collector of 2. But her bedroom has a few of these little guys. So when she gets a little bit older, I was talking to my husband. He's like really crafty and handy about maybe making her a little desk to go here with her little chair. This is a window box that overlooks the courtyard. And this is where we had a mommy bird and a baby bird had a nest here earlier this year. Like, what a dream. Like, I think this is so fun and so whimsical to have a miniature desk with this little chair to do her homework in. I think it's really special. And I wanted to have a little moment for her books. So here's another one of our little friends has made an appearance. This is a dish rack, and I wanted to display her books and not hide her books. So my husband painted this to match all the trim and the doors in her room. And we show off all of her little fun books. And there's a lot of like fan favorites from when I was a little girl. Madeline, I just feel like she's so fun. And Eloise is obviously an American superhero. So we have a lot of like fun ones in her space. And as mentioned, this is my favorite room for so many different reasons. One, because I spend so much time here with my daughter, and two, because it feels whimsical and wonderful and just is this hidden tucked away with nature. My true reason why this is the favorite part of the house is because of this. So let me show you. There's a secret little nook over here, and I always like to say to my husband, this is girls only. We got this painted from a friend who did this, which was just so fun. So if you follow me, I'll bring you into her secret little playroom. So in this nook, this is the turret of the home, which is just so special and fun. We have this full wood ceiling with great lighting. And this is the staircase that goes down for her, and she's the only one that can access it. So this really feels like it came out of a storybook. On this wall right here, we have the original architectural drawings of the home that were done by hand, which is just so cool. The original owners kept them, and we were able to frame them. So David Adler, we have the Strauss property, and right here you can see that he has the 3-car garage. So there's the 2 different garages here, or the 3 different garages here, which is really special and lovely. And once again, those shutters that we match to the outside of the home and the turret, it's all here. So that's just wonderful and fun. Careful going down these stairs. There are like 3 little guys, but we have some fun. It's kind of almost like a little gallery area here. This is like the adult part. And then you can scoot in here and you'll have to duck. So I'm 5'7", my husband's 6'3", and he can't fit in here. I can only fit up until here, and then I have to scoot in a little bit. So this space is teeny, teeny, tiny. We have a little lounge chair in here. There's a little circle like port window that overlooks the ravine. We have tons of books that we've been collecting. This beautiful vintage rug that came from Egypt that my husband and I found when we were traveling on our honeymoon. And this is where I take my daughter and I feed her in the middle of the night. This is where we've been reading some books. And I know as she gets older, we'll probably take this piece out. We'll probably put in a little tent or a little play area because this overlooks the kitchen, which is so fun. So I picture this being her little like stage. Maybe she'll do a tap dance and show for us or something when she's older. But this is a really special spot that only she can access, this little nook. There's no other way to get to it than her bedroom, which is just a really special little area. So this is the half bath that's off of our kitchen, and this is where guests use to use the restroom. So we have this beautiful wallpaper, which I just think is lovely, and it feels a little English and layered. And then I have this beautiful oil that I found at an antique fair years ago, and I thought the colors felt like almost like a little entrance into what was happening in the bathroom. So we have this kind of like jewel box of a restroom. It has this beautiful mural, and you know, every angle has a different look and a different feel. So over here we have like these rolling pastures. We have this beautiful tree, and then we also matched the trim to all of like the vanity pieces. And I just think it feels like a little moment because the rest of the house is so light and bright, and there's lots of you know, little moody moments happening in here. And we have the greenhouse window again, which overlooks the ravine, and we get to see all of the little animals in this special space. So we're in the entryway of the home, and I think it's incredibly special because you walk right into the turret. So it almost feels like you're walking right into a storybook off of the courtyard. And I think the most interesting piece about this space is you can look all the way up and you can see the full wood ceiling that's lit beautifully. We had a lighting designer come in and do that. We have not enough space for much, but we have a little chair to take off your shoes, a little table to drop your keys, and love those sentimental moments throughout the home. This is my late father-in-law's cigar box, and this is where I've kept really special notes that have been written over the years. So I keep them here for storage, which feels pretty fun. And around the corner, we have where our dogs eat and they drink, and it's kind of their hangout zone. So we have a really fun gallery wall that is used for our dogs. We have artwork. I got an oil done of my puppy. I always like to make a joke that it's like she's like the Queen of England getting a custom commissioned oil painting of her. And I have some beautiful little books that I cut out, pictures of Rottweilers from the 20s. So we have this beautiful gallery wall of doggies that makes it feel really fun and special, and they're members of our family too. Home means to me a really safe and warm landing spot, and I also view home as a place that you feel inspired, and I feel like Snowdrop Cottage does both of those two things. We are 5 minutes from a train station to get to downtown Chicago. We are a 4-minute walk from this amazing international music festival called Ravinia. And just this summer, we had John Legend come, we had Norah Jones come, we had James Taylor come, and we can walk there with our picnic basket. So we have easy access to inspiration, but we're also tucked back and we're fully gated in, and we're on the back of a ravine, and it just feels like this little magical snowdrop, magical little fairy tale place.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Victoria. Welcome to my home in Chester, Nova Scotia. Let me show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Victoria Armour, and I'm an interior designer. Welcome to my home. My husband and I moved to Halifax during COVID, and after we kind of got settled and thought the hustle and bustle would slow down a little bit, it never really did. We had work and we had the kids, and everything just kind of kept up with life being busy. So we were drawn to the concept of, I guess, buying like a summer home or a cottage outside of the city where we could really slow down and relax. We have 3 young kids. They're 2, 4, and 6. So we thought, why don't we find somewhere where we can kind of, get out of the craziness and look to make some memories with them. So at that time, Natalie, my business partner, her and her husband had been in Chester for a few years, and they spoke really highly of it. They also have young kids, and they spoke really highly of the community. They loved the atmosphere, and really what drew them to Chester was exactly what we were looking for. So we thought, okay, why don't we kind of set out to see what's on the market? And if we find something right away, that's wonderful. If it takes a year or two, we're also okay to wait. We weren't in a huge rush. And lo and behold, this was the second home that we toured. So it was a very quick, I think from deciding to start looking at places to finding this, I was 2 months, so it happened much faster than we anticipated. I would describe the style of this home as Palm Beach meets Canadian East Coast. So I have a huge affinity for the Palm Beach color palette, which would be pinks and corals and turquoise and aqua. And I knew that I wanted to incorporate that into this space, but of course, palm trees were going to feel kind of crazy in here. So it was really this marriage of taking those colors that I loved from the Palm Beach aesthetic and thinking, how can I marry those with a, coastal kind of sailing community home? So this definitely is different than my home in the city. I think, For your primary residence, people typically want something that feels a little calmer, a little more kind of neutral and easy in your day-to-day life. Your home in the city has to kind of take you through 4 seasons. So it's difficult, especially in Canada, to really go all in on something bright or all in on something moody, because then on a beautiful July day, a moody home's going to feel strange. And on a dark winter day, if you're looking at like bright flowers on your wall, it's also going to feel a little bit off. What I love about this space is because it's a summer home, you can go all in on that like summer aesthetic and just make it really happy and vibrant and fun. Welcome to my living room. So the focal point of this room is definitely the hand-painted mural that spans the entire width of the room. As I mentioned before, this all used to be really dark, heavy cherry wood. So when we painted it out white, it was a huge contrast from where we started to where it went. And I knew it kind of had swung the pendulum a little too far the other way. Because the walls are made of plaster, we actually couldn't wallpaper in here. So that was definitely a challenge when I thought about, okay, how do I add some more color? Because the walls did feel too stark. And the solution was to bring in a decorative painter. So even though this looks like wallpaper, there was a Schumacher print that I absolutely loved, and I brought it to Anya and I said, are you able to transcribe this into my summer home? And she brought an assistant. It took them, I'd say, a couple of days. Maybe they were here 2-3 days, and they had a stencil, and the assistant would actually follow the stencil all the way around, and then Anya would follow behind and fill in all those little details. So it's really stunning, because when you walk in here, everybody assumes it's wallpaper, but if you go up close, it's really beautiful, and every flower has a little bit of a unique feel and a unique little flair. Something that was challenging for her after the fact, which I actually didn't even notice, meaning she did an amazing job, is the trim does not run at a 180-degree angle all the way around the room. So if you actually look at the flowers, here, for example, you see a little peekaboo of the bottom one, but on the other side of the room, you see kind of halfway up the flower. And to be honest, I don't think it's something that anybody notices, so she just did amazing. So the fireplace is the original fireplace. I chose not to paint it out, to leave the original brick, because I just think it really brings such character to the home. This is a 120-year-old house, and really when designing, there was this tension between maintaining all those special little details that keep the house traditional and historic, but then modernizing it to kind of my style and my vision. So the fireplace was something that we painted out, but keeping the original brick really felt special to me, and it has that worn-in feel. Then we added these sconces, and what I love about the sconces is they do have this playful flair to them. They're a little bit more modern, they're a little bit unexpected, but they really fit that kind of like whimsical, fun vibe. And the brass kind of grounds them and makes them feel more antique and more traditional than they actually are. Then I found these kind of cute pieces. These are mostly from my travels, from, looking at things online, getting targeted Instagram ads, because the algorithm just knows me that well at this point. What I love about this cottage is when I find these kind of little decor items, these little trinkets that typically, I could never put this in my primary home, but I see it and I'm like, this is so cute and it's perfect for this space. So if you guys come back in a few years, probably this entire ledge will be flooded with little crazy pieces, but this is a little bird from Iceland that I just added this summer, and I just love that it fits so perfectly. It's not necessarily about just buying things to fill a room. I think you get a space kind of to the ground level where you like it, but then over time, it's got to feel more collected. You've got to add things that have story and that have, thoughtfulness and fun behind them. And that's kind of what this is for me. Over here, I have this cravat chair, and this little corner was a bit of a puzzle for me. So obviously it needed something to fill it, but with 2 doors kind of spanning each end to the exterior and to the sunroom, it needed to feel thoughtful and intentional. So this chair, again, has this old world feel with a custom pillow, and something that I love that you'll see throughout the entire home are these switch plates. So switch plates are something that are often an afterthought in most renovations or most homes. But going back to that really historic, traditional character of this home, I knew I couldn't just put a plain white modern switch plate. So I found these, they're Forbes and Lomax, and they go throughout the entire home. And I think they really just go back to that original character, even though they're new and modern. When we purchased the home, the original owner actually had some really beautiful antiques that I was fortunate enough to inherit. This table and these chairs being kind of this sitting area was already good to go. What I did do was I added these pillows. They're custom cravat pillows, and they have a really cool story behind them in terms of that they were a special collaboration between Christopher Faircloth and Fogo Island. And Fogo Island is a special kind of maritime gem, the Fogo Island Inn, which is part of, I guess, our maritime history. So when I saw that these were part of that collection, I knew that they would be perfect for this space, and they really tie into the story of the home. Something that I did in this space, because obviously it's a huge, expansive room, and it really needed to feel purposeful and intentional and balanced. We couldn't have, this side feel like such a moment and this side be completely bare. And I think we achieved that through the use of custom pillows. So all the pillows you see in here, the fabric was chosen specifically for a reason. The trim details and pieces were added to make sure that color story really felt cohesive from end to end. These are some of my favorite. I just love this little trim piece. It's a little bit like a rainbow, but actually pulls all the colors from the room together. So I think it just adds a little bit of fun. And I also got these striped chairs and ordered an ottoman to go with the striped chairs. And again, going back to balance within a room, pulling that ottoman over to the love seat created kind of that balance in terms of the stripes both living on each end of the room. These drapes are definitely a moment in here. They were a bit of a risk, and people do ask me, how did your husband feel about having blush pink drapes in the primary living space of this summer home? And luckily, my husband is slightly colorblind and he loves pink. So however he sees pink is very appealing. And I was very fortunate that he loves how everything turned out, because they definitely frame this window and frame this view beautifully and add that pop of color that's really complementary to the wall detail that's going on. So this is the entryway, and this is kind of the heart of the home. This is where you come in the front door, you go left to the living space, right to the kitchen and dining, or upstairs. And as you can see, it's kind of long and narrow, but it still needed to feel thoughtful and considered. So immediately I knew that I wanted to do a really fun bench seat over here. Too much of a good thing is a wonderful thing. I saw this on Anthropology, and this was actually my starting point. So I got this and then pulled in these really bright pinks and corals to just kind of have this feel like its own little moment. I'd say it's definitely more of an aesthetic play because this is a summer home. No one's coming in, taking their boots off, sitting down, but it really kind of frames this out, which I absolutely love. This art I also found early days when I started designing this cottage, and when I bought it, I wasn't sure where I was going to put it. I just knew that I loved it and I would find a home for it. It's by Karen Bramhill, who's an artist based in Ottawa, and she actually has a really cool story where she, similar to me, I guess, in interior design, similar to a ton of creatives, where she was late to the game in terms of starting her career as an artist and just kind of stumbled into it as a hobby. And I mean, her stuff is absolutely stunning. I love the color palette. The piece is called Slowing Down, which I thought was so appropriate for the fact that this photo looks out onto the ocean. And our whole mantra of buying this home was to be able to slow down and get out of kind of like the craziness of day-to-day life. So it really holds a super special place in my heart. So the stairs, we painted out at the same time that I painted out the rest of the cottage. What I really did as a nod to the fact that this space connects to both the dining and living areas was painted the risers this Teresa's Green by Flair. You'll see over in the dining room that the straight sight line is another huge kind of built-in chest in the same paint color. So it really was a nod to the fact of bringing that paint color from one space to the other. And it's also just a little more playful. It's somewhere that's kind of neutral. So I always go back to how can I kind of add some color and create like a special moment here. Now let me show you our dining room. So similar to the living room, Anya, the decorative artist, came in and painted out this incredible mural of the Chester landscape. Our starting point was Susan Harder, but we wanted to make it feel a little more whimsical, a little more playful. So we took a Susan Harder kind of inspired piece and put our own twist on it. She used the Chester landscape, which is really what we see when we look at our front window in terms of sailboats, trees, a ton of greenery, and really brought that inside. I think this mural definitely makes the space in terms of when you walk in, it's immediately where your eyes go. For the dining space, I have 3 young children, so I wanted it to look good, but I also wanted it to work for our lives. Because this is a cottage, I mean, at home, I can be chasing them and I can be nagging them a little bit. But when we're out here, I just want to be able to chill and not worry about sticky hands or messy fingers or crayons on top of the table. So I went super basic in terms of a wood top and wood chairs without any fabric. This was a bit of a tough design decision, though it worked functionally. I knew that everything around it had to feel really textured and bold so that this kind of didn't fall flat. And it achieved what I wanted. My kids can be in here and I can be in the kitchen and I'm not fussing about what they're doing in the dining room. So that's a big relief. The fireplace, similar to the living room, we kept the original fireplace, didn't paint anything out, kept all the original character. Some of these antiques that you'll see are from Conifer Shop in Lunenburg, which is a really wonderful local antique shop. So along with what the previous owner had and what we were able to source locally, I pulled in some colorful antiques like this vase to really have a nod to all the color palette that's going on within this room. You'll notice a little bit more yellow in here than in the other spaces. I think it really just brightens it up. This is a piece that I got in Paris. We were invited on a trip with Kravit to go see Maison Objet last January. And it's funny because I'm not sure that lemons are necessarily the Parisian flair that you would expect, but we had an afternoon free and Natalie and I just kind of went thrift shopping and this was here. And again, it was one of these special pieces similar to the piece that I found in Iceland that I just knew I could bring in and find a little spot for and add kind of a little more personality to the room. And every time you look at these pieces, they do tell a story in terms of where you've been, where they came from, and it holds those memories for me. So that's wonderful. This built-in chest of drawers is the Teresa's Green, which mirrors what we have going on the stairs. So this was really a moment. These yellow vines are a custom Thibaut fabric. We have an amazing company that we work with here called The Window Edit. And what I really was unsure of when I pulled this fabric was, do I want them at half or full on the window? Is the room going to get enough natural light if I really bring them all the way up? And ultimately, I did decide to bring them all the way up. I didn't want to cut off this repeat because I really felt you needed the scale and the full look to get the impact from the fabric. And I mean, on a beautiful sunny day like today, we are not shy of natural light in here. So it was definitely the right decision. This is your sight line when you come in directly from the entry point, and it just makes me smile every single time I see it. This is just, again, kind of like an eclectic piece. I saw these when I was in Toronto, hot pink bowls. When would I ever use them? Of course, the answer is in Chester. So they belong here, and this is just a little piece of all the things that I love. This candle over here is another item that just makes me smile. It's banana pudding, Boy Smells, with a collaboration with Magnolia Bakery. And I absolutely love the Magnolia Bakery banana pudding. So this is a wonderful scent to bring into my home. This is probably my favorite piece of furniture in the entire home. And it has a really wonderful story to it. As I mentioned, Fogo Island in my living room. So last summer, my husband and I went to the Fogo Island Inn with Natalie and her husband. And if you don't know much about the Fogo Island Inn, really the kind of Cole's notes of this story is that Zita Cobb, who grew up there, she went off and had a very successful career, but always had this tie to coming back home in Newfoundland. And primarily Newfoundland is a fishing economy. So she saw her small town start to kind of dwindle away over the years as she was living abroad. And she thought, I need to come back and do something for my community, or my community is essentially just going to die out. So she came back and started this not-for-profit and built this incredible, aesthetically interesting inn in Fogo Island, and utilized, local craftsmen, local materials, and revitalized the economy, like fully has lifted up the economy there. If anybody is thinking about kind of an off-the-grid type vacation, it's an incredible experience. So when it comes to the pieces of furniture, she brought in, I want to say, around 20 European designers to work with local craftsmen in Newfoundland and create pieces that were reminiscent of old Fogo and the Fogo lifestyle, but from designer eye. So this was something that was, I think it's in every room at the Fogo Island Inn, and it's called the Get Your Feet Up chair. And the concept is that you can sit in it like this, have your coffee here, and just kind of read a book or relax. So this is a really special piece. I waited quite a while to get it because it's very custom, but when it arrived, it was 1,000% worth the wait. Now let me show you into our kitchen. So given the fact that when we bought this as a second home, we had no furniture to bring, we were starting from scratch essentially. I was trying to keep as much of the existing bones and things that were still in good condition as I could. I didn't need to rip everything out and start from scratch. And the kitchen was one of those places. So the countertop and the cabinetry was existing. And I guess what I did in here was I just put some lipstick on it. It was white walls, white cabinetry, white marble, and I wanted it to obviously feel really cohesive with the rest of the home. So my starting point in here was these two pendants. They're visual comfort, and they just felt very beachy to me, almost like a seashell, the shape, they're plaster, they're kind of organic. So I knew immediately that I wanted to put these in here, but again, they're white. So what else was I going to do to make this room feel interesting? Next, I moved on to the wallpaper. So a question I get often is it risky having wallpaper in a kitchen? Obviously, it's somewhere that's messy. It's somewhere that gets, a lot of love in terms of wear and tear. And wallpaper typically isn't thought of as super durable. This is actually a vinyl wallpaper, which I chose on purpose, and vinyl is much more durable. It can withstand much more of a beating, and it looks just as good as new. So this blue wallpaper really brought that color palette in here. I painted out the trim and the ceiling in a light blue to really make that wallpaper feel super cohesive and wrap that blue all the way around, given there was so much existing white and so many hard surfaces that were already white. From there, I just layered. I just, again, kind of went and picked some decorative objects that added color, that added personality, that felt very of place. This was from a local shop in Halifax, just a little stitched sailboat. This I've had for a decade. It is from Amsterdam, a salt and pepper shaker, and I never really had a place for it. I kept it in the back of a closet. And when we moved out here, I thought, my little pig salt and pepper shakers, this is the perfect home. This is from Conifer Shop. Again, mixing that old and new was so important in every room here. It couldn't just feel modern. It had to be reminiscent and bring those old pieces in. So this cutting board, you know, it's really more, I actually had friends down, and one of them is a trained chef. And he was going to make a charcuterie board. So I don't know, I'm off like chasing the kids around. And I come back in and he's making the charcuterie board on my decorative cutting board. And he just kind of looks at me. He's like, was I not supposed to use this? I'm like, it's fine, it's fine. But again, I think as an interior designer, you know, like what are pieces that work for your home and what are pieces that are nice to look at. So this is one of those nice to look at pieces. It's more of a style play. The blue knives, just like a fun scalloped edge bowl. All of the pieces in here are just really thought through in terms of what can bring fun and color. These side plates and little bowls are cabbage bowls. So again, just something really fun. We use these when we have guests, and I just think they're really cute for a summer home. I have, let me see in here, I also have the full dinner plate size, which is some of my favorite plates. Over here, we have our kind of coffee, tea, bar area. These mugs are from Etsy. Again, they add color, they add playfulness. So while nothing in here was totally ripped up, I think it's really a testament to using kind of decorative features, thoughtful edges, texture, color, and it can totally transform a space. Over here on the stools, we have these rattan stools. These are custom seat covers, talking about that color story of pulling blues and pinks throughout the home. So it's got the pink stripe with the coral, and I think this just kind of finishes off the space in terms of like an extra pop of color. What drew us to Chester was, I guess, first the fact that it's only 45 minutes from Halifax. My husband and I are both entrepreneurs, so even when we're down here in the summer, we do have to kind of be back and forth between the city. So that commute felt very manageable. I guess being in a bigger city, you have more than a 45-minute commute every day. So that became a non-issue. We also love the atmosphere here. It's a very small town. It's a very kind of close-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. You're walking down the street and people say hi. I think when we purchased the home, you know, at least 5 or 6 neighbors came over with cookies or cards or bottles of wine. And that was just something really special. I don't think you get that every day, you know, in other parts of the world or in other cities. And we also love the whole sailing community. We are not sailors, but we've heard that it's really wonderful for the kids to kind of grow up in this little bubble and have these summer friends and these people that you come back here every summer and they grow up together at the sailing club. And this summer was our son's first summer as part of the Chester Sailing Club, and he absolutely loved it. We actually have a water view, and he would go out on his like mini little boat, and we'd take the binoculars out and look at him, and he'd come back at the end of the day and say, "Mom and Dad, I saw you guys looking at me." So it's just been really special. And now I want to show you the real selling point of this house, which is this gorgeous dock with this view of the peninsula. So as any good realtor would, he took us through the home first. And, you know, we love the home, beautiful bones, beautiful tradition and architectural details, but they always save the best for last. At the end of the visit, he brought us down here to a private dock that overlooks the Chester Peninsula. The Chester Yacht Club is just down there. So all summer long, there's boats coming and going, and it really is a testament to the sailing culture down here. Every August, there's Chester Race Week, which people come from all over the world to race their sailboats, and it's very special to have this place and be able to sit and enjoy and just take in this beautiful slice of the world. Even though I put so much time, effort, love into designing the inside of the home, this is the space where memories are made. My kids come down here and skip rocks. You know, we swim, we jump off the dock, we have friends down here, and the adults can sit and have a beer while the kids play on the beach. I know that, you know, come 20, 30, 40 years, this is the place that I'm going to remember Chester by. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My father was an entrepreneur from the time he was in his 20s and grew a transportation and logistics business. So that was really my first exposure to, I guess, the business side of things. I went through university and got an MBA. And then after finishing school, I went back and worked for my family for almost a decade. So very business focused, very much not creative. And I always did have this creative piece though, when I look back, and I think a lot of designers will say this, where, you talk about rearranging your furniture or painting your room, helping friends as I kind of got into my 20s and helping them with paint or what should I buy here. But it takes some time, I think, for a lot of designers to really build that connection between I can do this for a living versus it's just like a fun hobby. So for me, I really only dove into the world of doing design full-time in my early 30s. And I had met Natalie, who's now my business partner, and she was kind of doing the same thing. She was doing it a little bit as a hobby. I was doing it a little bit as a hobby. And when her and I clicked, I think there was something really special between us. And we just said, do we want to kind of go all in together and see where this goes? And that was 3 years ago, and we haven't looked back. It's been wonderful. My go-to design tip would be to always think about the color story in your home. Most of the homes that we do incorporate color either in a big way or a small way. But we always talk about how you make a home feel personal is through color. If everything's just neutral, it's going to feel like everybody else's home. So you need to find those really special moments to drop color in. And for this space in particular, I decided to weave the color story from day one into pinks and blues. So as we go through the home, you'll see there might be turquoise in one room, there might be navy in another room, there might be baby blue in another room. On the flip side, there could be corals, there could be blush pinks, but it's keeping that common thread between the pinks and the blues as you walk through the home, that it doesn't feel matchy-matchy, but it also still feels connected. So my go-to tip for people would be to really think, especially if they're renovating or changing up multiple spaces, how do these connect through color? It doesn't have to be one for one, but take that grounding color and kind of weave it into the story, and it'll make your home feel really connected. Welcome to the primary bedroom. This is another space that, and you'll see this actually in all the upstairs bedrooms, these ceilings were definitely a challenge. We're working around really old plaster, dated ceilings that, again, it is what it is. This bed is kind of one of my favorite pieces in the room, all the bedding that goes along with it. A key design element, and you'll see this throughout all the bedrooms, is I had to have very low headboards. So with these angles on the walls, we couldn't do something that was really an interesting tall headboard, which made the bedding be such a key thing in order to kind of drive design and color and fun in these spaces. This is a Schumacher quilt. It was kind of the last piece of the room that I actually pulled together. I had a neutral kind of beige quilt in here, and it never felt quite right. It kind of fell flat. And after being here for about a year, I found this online and I knew it was definitely the right piece. So I purchased this and swapped it out and haven't looked back. Something else I love about the bedding is these lobster sheets. It's kind of this homage, this nod to the East Coast. So the lobster sheets will always have a special place in my heart. I also have my lobster sandals, which everybody makes fun of me for, but I saw an influencer wearing them and I was like, well, she's cool. I can pull them off, right? Nobody seems to think they're cool except me, but clearly, if I'm highlighting them in this video, I'm pretty attached to them. Over here, this is new and we just needed some storage. You'll notice all the closets in here are very small. They're built in. Again, they were back from when the house was built. So function and, need for clothing wasn't necessarily top of mind. So we just added this in to give us a little more flexibility, a little more storage. This is original art from a gallery in Halifax. The sailboat, the color palette, again, tying back to everything that you see going on in the other rooms. We have an original fireplace in here, and I painted out the surround just a little bit of a creamier color than the white walls, just so it could have its kind of own moment and really stand on its own. These are custom shades from Etsy on an Amber Lewis sconce. These were added. I felt like the wall was a little bit flat, so we added these sconces with these custom Etsy shades, and I think it really just finishes this off over here. This is an antique dresser. You'll also see these in most of the bedrooms. They were inherited by the previous owner, and I think they just have so much character. I love the built-in mirrors. So again, while they don't provide a ton of storage, I think aesthetically, they just tie everything into the home. Welcome to the upstairs bathroom. This space was definitely the biggest design risk from my perspective. It's a small space with a lot going on. And as a designer, you'll know that you get decision fatigue, even in your own home. And there's always kind of this space at the end that you pick one thing, and you're like, I like that. And then you kind of pick one thing, and you're just kind of crossing your fingers that it all works out. And to be honest, this is one of my favorite spaces in the home. So I even surprised myself. The wallpaper in here has a little bit of cream to it. It obviously has a ton of color, which I absolutely love. It ties into that pink, blue, coral, everything you've seen downstairs. We also painted out the trim around the window and the baseboard in Benjamin Moore First Light, which is a really soft, delicate pink. It's very feminine, and it frames this beautiful view out to the backyard. The vanity matches the trim color, so it is also in First Light. And what I love about this vanity is even though it's new, it has a bit of old world charm. It has the curved edges, it has the detail on the door face, it has the interesting backsplash. So it was meant to feel a little bit more historic in terms of how it was designed and the style. The floors are geometric marble. One of the things that I was unsure of when I chose them was how was the marble going to hold up in a bathroom where, you know, you're bringing sand, you're bringing little kind of like dirty feet. It's not necessarily like at home where you're walking around with socks all the time. So this was something in terms of when you're always balancing functionality with style. I definitely leaned more towards style than function with these floors. They might not last 20 years, but they'll last long enough that it was definitely worth it for me. Welcome to my daughter's room. This is a little girl's space. She's 4 years old, and I wanted it to be able to grow with her. So really in terms of hard finishes, you know, this lime green table, blinds to match with the rest of the home, this visual comfort lamp, everything that is going to stay in the house will grow with her. But then we took really like interesting moments to have fun. So she picked these ballerina sheets herself because she's 4. And this isn't a very large bed. She sometimes, when she's asleep, falls out of the bed. So we have a bumper under here, if anybody is wondering what this large lump underneath the quilt is. She also chose, we have some of her books. She also chose this cute little lamp. And somewhere that I love is Artfully Walls. So Artfully Walls has really beautiful, affordable art that, you know, if it's not going to be your wow moment for original art, you can go there and get some really cute pieces. So for example, this pink mermaid and seashell photo just really fit the space well. I was a bit unsure what to do over here, given the wall is so low, but it felt really bare. And when I found this piece of art, I knew that it was perfect. Welcome to the guest room. This is another room. It really mirrors what you see going on in the primary, just losing the fireplace, but the angles in the ceiling, you know, kind of the tight spaces around the bed. I took fabrics, I took texture, I took the bedding, and I just tried to make this a really fun space. What you'll see in a lot of the rooms are the nightstands actually aren't symmetrical. They aren't even matching. That again goes back to these strange angles in the wall where one side you might have 24 inches to play with, the other side you have 10 inches. So you can't just go buy a set of nightstands and call it a day. It's actually a space where I had to be really thoughtful about not only aesthetics, but function. In a guest room, people are coming, they're putting their phone down, they're unpacking. So thinking about how do they use this space day to day. Something we've done in this guest room too, given that we have young children, we do have a lot of families that come and stay. So how can we add more sleeping space? We have a king bed in here and a twin bed to just really maximize the number of people that can come enjoy this place. We have this nice little desk where you can sit down, do your makeup, unpack your things. And then something really beautiful about this exterior space for our guests is that there's actually access to an outdoor patio. This is our second upstairs bathroom. Again, a little smaller, a little tighter, but that's what you get with these old homes. We gutted this entire bathroom and really we're trying to improve the storage, the flow, and the function in here. So some of the key design decisions were, of course, this jellyfish wallpaper. I had pitched it to 20 clients and nobody bid. I think it was a little bold, it was a little risky, but that's the beauty of being a designer. You can always we call it our design graveyard. You can tuck all your best ideas into the graveyard, and then when you design your own spaces, you pull them back out. So that's what this wallpaper was for me. Function was really key in here because it's not a huge bathroom. I really had to be thoughtful about how we found storage. So in here we have the drawers and the vanity, and then we also have this little cubby. The shower used to span the entire wall, and when we ripped it out, I stole about, I want to say 12 to 14 inches and created this little cubby area that just gives us the opportunity for more storage. Otherwise, I took this vanity and I painted it out blue, kind of to mirror the blues going on in the jellyfish. So it was a nod to that. And my absolute favorite part of this bathroom is this shade. The striped blue, I think really is just a sight line straight in, and it really ties everything together. Welcome to my son's room. Again, in here, we're trying to maximize for guests, for people to come share this space with. That was really the goal of this cottage, was not only that we could enjoy it, but to be able to have friends and family come stay with us and really make those memories. So we've added a twin bed along with the queen bed. My son is 6 and they were jumping back and forth and he smashed his head. You can see the little hole here. Because they're plaster walls, it's not as easy as patching up some drywall. So that is a project for a future date. But we have the 2 beds in here, his built-in closet, this beautiful antique dresser again, which is reminiscent in all the bedrooms. And you'll notice that in the primary, the guest room, and my son's room, it actually is the same bed frame with the low headboard, but I chose bedding and really styled the rooms differently. So it's not the bed frame that really jumps out at you. It's the color palette and all the elements of the room, and the bed frame just kind of fades into the background. Welcome to our bunkie. So this was the last piece of the puzzle. This is actually a standalone structure, and when we purchased the home, it was simply storage. There was no drywall, there was nothing on the floor. It was just kind of a shell where the outdoor furniture was put at the end of the season. Given the fact that the main level is fully open concept, my husband and I, after our first summer out here, realized that we needed somewhere that we could work quietly. So we got this idea of what if we took this existing structure, finished it off inside, added air conditioning, and kind of created this separate adult space away from the kids. It's now turned into a gym office combo, which I absolutely love. And we come out here and work. These chairs are probably my favorite piece. They're custom cravat chairs with Andrew Martin fabric. Again, they're just so fun. One design decision was, do I keep these doors or do I remove them and add a transom window? Obviously, the right move for today, given that the desk is here, would be to have the transom, but we really don't know what this space is going to be long term. It works for us, given the ages of our children and where we're at in life, But 10 years down the road, this could be like a really cool bunkhouse with bunk beds for the kids. So we didn't want to limit ourselves for future growth and change. I see this a bit of a flex space. So for that reason, we decided to keep the existing doors. Over here, we have a nice arched bookshelf. We use it primarily for storage as it relates to the gym. Then we have my husband's very intense workout equipment, which I don't use, so I can't really speak to what any of this is. But we have my yoga mat and my free weights, and we're both kind of happy in terms of what we're able to get from this space and just come out here, think, be quiet, use it on the weekends, and it's really special. The shade, I think, ties everything together, given the fact that on the office side of the space, we do have some really interesting design elements going on. Then once you kind of enter the gym, obviously it's basic gym equipment. There's a lot of black. This shade just really pulls the room together end to end, and I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. Something that you're probably seeing online right now is kind of the death of the pot light. And this bunkie really plays into that trend, where I put the shiplap on the ceiling to just add some visual interest, but instead of just popping pot lights in, we use these small Ralph Lauren flush mounts to just kind of have that impact. And again, the brass, you see it's kind of vintage, it's a little antique-y. And I think even though this space is all brand new, it really kind of pulls that same vibe that you're seeing in the main house. Home to me is like a good friend. So growing up, I lived in the same home my entire life. My parents actually built my house like 6 months before I was born. And there's pictures of, me as a baby coming home from the hospital, and there's pink balloons outside, and the landscaping's not done. And that was my first kind of memory of home. And, fast forward 30 some years, and that is still the house that they live in today. So it was this feeling that even as I grew up and I left and I went off to university and I got my heart broken, I started my first job, I got married, I had children, I always came back to this place that was so grounding that as life changes and you grow, home kind of doesn't change. It's this place that, like I said, kind of feels like an old friend that you can be apart from, but when you get back together, you just pick up exactly where you left off. And I think that's something really special.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.